Hello and welcome to the Redeye stream. It is 7 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cascade Mountains. My partner Doku here is coming from the southeast, down Virginia way. Um, Today we're going to review a Macy's song for just a little bit, and then we're going to have a very inconvenient conversation that America needs to start having before bullets start flying again. Um, I do want to start off with all views and opinions expressed on the Redeye stream are not necessarily the views of Mad Dodge Productions. We do not necessarily support any radical ideas, and we are definitely not calling for any. It's not a call to action. It's not a call to violence, unlike what others have been doing. And we will discuss that. Oakland, I'm looking at you. Maybe you worry about your own city. You know, we'll get to that later. All right, let's let Macy's talk here for a minute. And I am going to be stopping in between and stuff to discuss and also throw off that magic algorithm. Anything you want to say real quick before I start, Doku?
No, I'm good. Go ahead and hit it.
Screaming Trump 2020 or Christ 21, cause the way this shit heading, Armageddon finna come. I ain't dumb, I can see the writing on the wall. I ain't talking about the war by Mexico. No, I'ma let them know. Since you wanna talk about a war, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how Barack and Hillary were all about it. Let's talk about.
First off, you see why I chose that. Let's talk about it. That's going to be pretty much the theme for tonight's show. Let's talk about it. But yeah, let's talk about it. Obama and Hillary were all about that wall. So was Bill Clinton. So was George W. Right?
Well, they've been campaigning, both the left and the right have been campaigning on border security, from border patrol to tougher immigration law to tougher on deportation, especially violent criminals, all the way up to border barriers. But as soon as they're off the campaign trail and they've secured their seat in office, they might do a little bit here and there, but they never take any significant action.
Yeah, I mean, and what he's saying there, Trump 2020 or Jesus 21, he's pretty much saying it's do or die at this point. At least that's what I'm feeling from it.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. Yeah, he's basically saying we're at the 11th hour.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit start again here.
But how Obama had them kids in cages first. Well, it's not cause when I talk about truth, Obama had them kids in cages first. Well, it's not cause when I talk about truth, you get your feelings hurt. Obama wouldn't let him through. Guess he was a racist too, but he can't because he black. No matter what he say or do. And while we on the subject of that fuck yeah, how come he can go to church but you won't let the public? Shut the fuck up, where kids in cages shit is crazy. When Candace always has to show them that they live in Swayze. Speaking Swayze, Hollywood should got a lot to say about Donald Trump, but then they plead the fifth when little kids get bought as slaves. I'm getting so.
You want to touch on the Hollywood reference there? Or you want to leave that one alone?
And the only thing I'll say about it is, as Ralt would say from Lord Nurgle's stream, it's no secret what goes on the casting couch behind closed doors. Everybody knows it. It's part of the culture. And no, you want your 15, 16-year-old daughter or son to get a role in a movie? Well, guess what? Everyone knows what goes on in Hollywood. And but they won't talk. They won't talk about it. They want to pretend it doesn't happen. Let's ignore it. It makes us look bad, and if it makes us look bad, we're just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. It's all a conspiracy theory. Yeah, except for all the times it wasn't.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't have to talk about a certain island, but it's the same group of people rolling around together now, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's this. You'll notice, like, look at any pictures from, when they're all going to whatever meetings or like little meetups or closed door parties. Like, we know who these people rub elbows with. Like, and I have people say, "Oh, well, Trump was on the same airplane once, one time, and it wasn't even going to Little St. James. He was catching a flight from, I think it was Mar-a-Lago is where he was at, going back to New York City. And if I remember correctly, it was like his plane had like mechanical malfunctions or something. So Epstein offered him a ride on his airplane. Well, guess what? Trump's never been to fucking Little St. James, but there's plenty of people who have. Again, they're all part of the same fucking circle. And ironically enough, they all hate Donald Trump. So shouldn't that tell you something? I mean, they've been looking into the guy for the past 4 years nonstop. Don't you think they would have found dirt if it was there at this point in time?
Yeah, especially during his first term, considering what the Republicans did to Clinton. And don't get me wrong, the Republicans can dig up dirt with the best of them, but they're no Democrats. And what's up, memes? The link is in Discord. We're going to be touching upon some topics that you might want to throw your hat in the ring on. But we're going to review this song first, so we'll get back at it.
But then they plead the fifth when little kids get bored of slaves. I'm getting so tired of the truth being called conspiracy. Bitch, I'll die if I have to. I don't think you hear me. I give a fuck how many fans I lose from this. I'm on a mission, so that come with Judases. Get up, move, bitch. I don't give a flying fuck. Word up, another million views for the dude that they ain't heard of. Why they heard up the masses in the mess, the master plan. They had the money up the money, make our country cashless. Half the shit I say on Facebook is to.
What do you think about that? He touched upon cashless society there for a second in that bar. And I know you're not really a fan of rap, so that's why I chose this song for this show and you to be here, because you may not be a fan of rap, but listen to the words, and that's what we're discussing here.
No, yeah, and the push for the cashless society thing's been talked about for quite a while. There's a reason that the CIA, the FBI, absolutely detested the idea of Bitcoin for a while. And then what did they do? They started doing research into their own blockchain technology. So I know a bunch of people were saying the coin shortage was like a dry run for or how to implement a cashless society would look. I don't quite fall into that line of thinking. I think it was more of a direct attempt to try to slow down any type of economic momentum that might come up. But the cashless society is a long topic of conversation that we'd have to almost do our own separate Redeye stream to discuss. But it is something they're actively attempting.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because immediately it pops in my head. Everybody with this symbol will be able to do trade, and anybody without it won't. I mean, that's why they came out with the loadable credit cards, right? If you have bad credit, well, put your paper money on the plastic and use the plastic.
Well, and also, when you talk about controlling people, like through certain aspects of society, whether it's entertainment, news media, education, healthcare, it's easier to control a society financially if the society itself is cashless and you don't have actual physical tender that you're doing trade with. And that's just a plain and simple fact. Like, look at what happened. Look at what happened with who was it? Stripe. I think it was Stripe. Yeah, it was Stripe, where they were revoking people's ability to use payments. PayPal's done the same thing, kicking people off the platform, like payment processors, and then also banks. Like, who was it? Was it HBC or Bank of America that shut down? Who was the guy who founded the Proud Boys? Do you remember that guy's name?
I don't remember. Oh, Gavin McGinnis.
Yeah, didn't they shut down one of his bank accounts, or was it?
I remember something about that. I don't know if it was Gavin or the members of the Proud Boys that were in that altercation and actually got arrested. But I believe it was Wells Fargo. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, because I think something similar also happened to I want to say it was Lauren Southern had one of her bank accounts like frozen. Like they didn't flat out shut it down, but they just froze her bank account. Like, and it wasn't business related. It was like her personal bank account. They just froze it for no reason.
Yeah, that's insane. All right, before we get too far off on a tangent, first off, as just a music review here, he is spitting some good bars. That's undeniable in my opinion. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit play again.
Go for it.
Money make our country cashless. Half the shit I share on Facebook gets deleted faster than the tweets. At least deleting about the shit they eating. Tell them pedos eat a dick. Think I'm playing if you want. Mama praying for a son. Cause the snakes around them that'll happen. Draining out the swamp. The fun of media. Bitch. The fun of motherfucking media. Never ever watch a shit. Bang it through your speaker. Yeah. All they do is fuel the fire that divide us while these fact checkers hiding what unite us. Man, the time has come to draw a line in the sand. Boy, it's time to be a man. Attacking masculinity, so you ain't got the balls to stand. No, how would I retreat? Joe Biden mean defeat for America. Kiss goodbye to the land of the free. If
Oh, and when I hit pause like that, if you have something to say it, because there's a little bit of dead air while I switch screens. But
yeah, I was actually on mute myself.
Yeah, to draw the line in the sand, that needs to happen sometime soon, and that would be part of the disclaimer at the beginning. No part of this is a call to action, but from time to time, the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is a natural manure. Thomas Jefferson.
Well, again, that's the thing. A lot of what he's saying is, I mean, it is true. Like he touched on how trying to emasculate the society, because I mean, claiming all this toxic masculinity, like boys will be boys is bad, and all this other fucking bullshit, nonsensical bullshit that they completely they espouse day by day ad hominem. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because they want all guys running around wearing dresses and fucking pink shoes and shit? No, it's easier to control someone who's either confused or too emasculated and weak to stand up for themselves. You become reliant. Like that's just human nature. I'm not even going to say it's a sexist thing. It's when you have a certain type of mindset. The idea of like a strong individual or like strong family bonds. You can't control those people nearly as easily. That's just a basic way that human nature is.
Well, no, and the thing is, okay, unpopular opinion. All right, hot take from Mad Dodge. I believe it's the media and society that is creating the tiny 0.05% that is the actual trans community and blowing that up to where if you didn't know better, you would think the entirety of America is trans.
No, I don't disagree. It is boosted way out of what it actually is, because there's always a constant spotlight on it, and the people that are the pundits for it that constantly push it, they might be a small minority, but they're an extremely vocal minority, and they have become political pawns in a sense. So again, they can push that type of agenda, that type of narrative.
Well, no, and I believe that using gender dysphoria for your own political gain is, well, criminal. It really is. People are sick. Okay?
No, I agree.
Once again, a tangent.
Yeah. But yeah, no, a lot of these people either willingly or unwillingly get used as political pawns. We'll touch on this later, I'm sure, but it is easy to use the victim narrative as both a sword and a shield. But in order to push that type of narrative, you first need people who feel victimized.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just the next hill to die on. The lesbian and gay communities got their recognition, and then everybody looked around on the left and looked for a new hill.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like you can move from one quote unquote marginalized group over to the next, but in order to continue to propagate that narrative, again, you need people who believe themselves to be victims. The second that all the problems are addressed and solved, and I think going back onto the immigration thing, it's a reason that people don't want to, or politicians don't want to actually address that issue in a way that's permanent, is because, well, then you no longer have nothing to campaign upon. The problem is fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna go again. We're almost done. There's only a minute left. It's a short song.
That little girl sniffing pedo gets into position of our president. It's evident what's next is socialism. If that little girl sniffing pedo gets into position of our president, it's evident what's next is socialism. And I ain't working all day to give you most of what I make. So folks, you stay at home and make the same. I make no fucking way. This ain't hard to understand. If you want it, go and get it. That's what makes America great, even though they won't admit it. And I've been thinking, if America is such a shitty place, why so many people risk their lives to get into the state? And why?
Yeah, no, he's got a solid point that touches on what I was saying earlier. The more dependent a society is on government, the more easily controlled it is.
Yeah, but the point right there where I pause is the point that stands out to me. And I've heard it said a million times, but it does deserve repeating. If America is so fucking evil, why are people risking their lives to get in?
Well, yeah, it is kind of it is antithetical to assert that America was never great and this and that, while at the same time you have caravans of thousands of people risking their health and their livelihoods, even though that of their children, trying to cross over hundreds, if not thousands of miles in inclement weather with, no shoes on their feet in some cases, or paying coyotes to get them over the border simply so they can come into a country that provides them with opportunity to make something from nothing. And then you have people here, like he was saying, that, they're more than willing to sit on their asses, collect a welfare check, and then get paid to go out and protest and cause chaos and destruction while normal people are trying to work an actual honest job. They don't want to pay for these idiots. Like, no, you can collect a little bit of welfare. That's fine. Like, I understand the need for a safety net, but it shouldn't be a fucking lifestyle choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and just let it roll till the end here. I think that's the best way to do it for the last 45 seconds or a minute.
All right.
So many people fighting for illegals anyway. If it's so bad, then why aren't you warning them to stay away? So many double standards, I'm impressed that you can keep them straight. Especially when I know how bad you waste the thought to keep it straight. It's like I'm over like you women, man identify as women. Ain't no truth no more, I speak facts, all I get back is opinion. I ain't here to hear your feelings, say that shit for therapy. Cause where I see this country's going bad, and I can clearly see it. So it's Trump 2020, or Christ 21. Cause the way this shit heading, I'm getting finna go. I ain't dumb, I can see the writing on the wall. And I ain't talking about the war by Mexico. Well, I'ma let them know that Trump 2020 or Christ 21. Cause the way this shit heading, I'm getting finna go. I ain't dumb, I can see the writing on the wall. And I ain't talking about the war by Mexico. I'ma let them know.
Yeah, no, there's not really a whole lot to unpack, as they would say, on that last part, other than the fact that, yeah, we can talk on single points, but put everything together and then look at it if you're for the big picture. Look at the forest for the trees, so to speak. Yeah, the writing is on the wall. Like, society has gone fucking crazy. It's clown world. It's upside down. Like, people are absolutely confused. And the scary part is they would prefer the clown world where up is down, left is right, truth is or lies are truth. They would prefer that fantasy reality that they've created for themselves and been sheltered in their little soapbox safe space or hug bubble, as opposed to the actual reality of the situation. But I guarantee you, the reason you see a lot of these people are so miserable is because they still, to some level, they know deep down what they believe, what they espouse. They know it's not reality, and it drives them nuts. What's up, Pinoid?
So what you're saying is that truck drivers' butts drive you nuts. Is that where you're at right now?
Yeah, good to see you too, bro.
What up, man?
Chilling, man.
Oh, dude, I saw a white ghetto today.
What, the trailer park?
No. All right, so like I don't know how ghettos work where you come from, Mad Dodge, but how ghettos work where I come from and where Doku comes from, there are very specific things that let you know you're in a very bad neighborhood. All right, Doku, when you're driving down the street, what are you going to see as far as businesses are concerned when you are in a bad neighborhood?
Well, I can tell you the first thing. When every block has a drive-through liquor store, that's usually a pretty good indicator.
Okay, so when I was there, it went liquor store, daycare, liquor store, taco shop, beer store, liquor store, another bullshit restaurant, then across the streets, lotto, groceries, wine, and beer.
Oh, and don't forget the convenience stores that advertise the not even the neon letters, but the big fucking just the big ass signs. Where it's like we cash paychecks. Like
Yeah. I was about to say there was like 2 or 3 payday loan jumps too, and the nail and hair salon. And this was one block.
That and the pawn shops with the freaking wrought iron bars on the windows.
Yeah, there was no pawn shops, which was weird, right?
Wow, that's unusual.
But I was in Detroit, right? But I was in a white neighborhood.
Wow, well, those are rare, but they do exist.
Yeah, like I know white ghettos. Like I've been to white ghettos, and usually it's just like a lot of rundown places with cars up on blocks and shit. You know what I mean? Like they have like buildings that are being like held up with plywood, like fucking, like whatever. Like they just look like shit. And like it's just
I want to touch on that because that's something I noticed when I got down to Louisiana. Looking around, driving down the highway out to, my dad's property, I'm looking at houses that are just fucking empty. The swamp fucking has pretty much invaded. It's just a shell of a building, and this is in central Louisiana, right? It's not down in Hurricane Alley or whatever, New Orleans area, Lake Charles. It ain't down there. It looks like these places haven't been touched since the Civil War.
Yeah, that's a normal thing in poorer neighborhoods, right? Okay, so for instance, I was watching a Vice joint, right? And Vice does sometimes they do really good stuff. Where they were standing here talking about this coal town where like the fucking plant just closed up. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't compete anymore, or whatever. And it wasn't because of any regulations or no bullshit like that. It just coal's not a viable fucking way of making a living anymore. It's too expensive. And so like now they have a whole town full of people who own houses and they can't sell them if they want to move. Right? And they're like, what am I going to do? I'm just like, if I have to leave here because I can't make a fucking living, I have to abandon this fucking house. And that happens a lot in a lot of these areas where industry closed down.
Well, that's what happened, or that's what I noticed when I was driving up from VA going up to Wisconsin. And when you drive through a lot of these areas in like Michigan, Ohio, some areas of Wisconsin, some areas of Illinois, but mostly I noticed it in Michigan, where a big industry down there is building either RVs, those panel vans that you'll see, and then pontoon boats. And a lot of those factories have just completely dried up. And so you'll drive through a town where it's just a bunch of people in run down ass houses and like maybe like a pub here or mom and pop shop there. But for the most part, the town is just empty buildings, just boarded up.
Well, yeah, you have that on the West Coast. The Junction City, I went to high school there. They had Country Coach, and, it was a really big coach manufacturer. But the thing is, the only people that buying these $1 million coaches or $250,000 coaches were the retired rich people, and there's only so many of them to sell to. So the RV industry collapsed.
Well, that's the thing in the Great Lakes area, especially in like Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, is pontoon boats really aren't that expensive for someone who has a normal, just like a normal blue collar working job out there. But but the factory dries up, then there's no business. So the what was the big manufacturer down there? Winnebago. Winnebago sells some really affordable RVs. But if you can't buy it, there's no reason to produce it. So it's just kind of this cascading effect of, these towns go from being prosperous back in the from the 60s all the way up to the 80s and even the 90s. But right about the 90s, outsourcing can't compete, especially in manufacturing. Price of input materials keeps going up. It's just you're not competitive.
You're killing me. All right. I gotta correct you. Okay. The coach industry collapsed in about 2006, 2007. That's when Country Coach, Marathon, Safari, all the West Coast manufacturers started to implode. Right now in Junction City, funny that you brought up Winnebago, they bought the old Country Coach warehouses and everything with it. So they're manufacturing in Junction City, actually. And where I was running the CNC machine, my boss, it was a small shop. So him and his son ran it and owned it. He actually bought the building from Country Coach when they liquidated because they had to go into Chapter 11. And they only have one small shop left that does the lifetime warranties on the coaches. I mean, you're buying $1 million coach. You got a warranty, right?
Oh, yeah. No, when I was talking about Winnebago's and what they were producing in Michigan, I think was a big factory for them. But those weren't capping out at like $50,000-$60,000. Like
the vast majority of those fucking giant RV makers are in one fucking place. It's Elkhart, Indiana, and they can't keep up with fucking orders. At this point.
Yeah, Safari survived, and so did Marathon, but they do even higher end than Country Coach did. They do stuff for Metallica. You know what I mean? My buddy worked at Marathon, and he worked on Metallica's coach. So
yeah, like their prices always shock the fuck out of me. Like down on 95, right before you get to Richmond, there's a big ass fucking RV fucking sales place, right? And you just look at the prices and you go, who the fuck is paying $750,000 for a fucking RV? And people do it. Like, yo, that is the good book. I'm gonna tell you like this: buying a new RV is literally the worst investment you could ever make. Like, yo, if you even say you even put 5,000 miles a year on the bitch, real shit, per mile you will lose $1,000 fucking dollars a mile on some shit or some crazy. I did the math one time. It was some fucking insane number per mile of how much money you lose with a fucking RV. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, people are dumb.
Oh, yeah. You know what's even funnier? The people building these $1 million RVs, right? Half of them are on crystal meth, and the other half wait for 5:30 to open their first beer in the parking lot. I mean, shit, dude. You can probably go to Detroit and get this shit made from the fucking just walk up to the block and be like, hey, how many of y'all worked at the car companies? So we need an RV built real quick.
Oh my God, I can't fucking. Yo, Detroit's a fucking shithole though. But I'm gonna tell you what, the riverfront properties, they're doing really fucking well rebuilding the fucking waterfront down there. I was going down across that bitch, man. Listen, it's fucking gorgeous, and fucking little boutique shops and fucking like fucking like high-rise apartments. Oh, gorgeous as fuck. But I'm not fucking around. You go 3 blocks fuck backwards, it is fucking hell. It looks like New Jack City in that bitch.
Dude, that's a lot of areas in southern Maryland. Like Annapolis has always been fucking nice. That's where all your yacht club kids and everything are.
Yeah.
But you go to Crofton. Crofton's nice as hell, but that's only what, like 2 exits away from frickin' Lanham, PG County. Like, bro, seriously, like a 10-minute drive, and you're straight in the ghetto. Like, they'll rob the fucking Wendy's out there. I shit you not. One of the last times I was up there, we're going to get McDonald's. The Wendy's across the road. The entire thing was roped off with the police line. There's like 8 cop cars. Asked the dude at McDonald's what happened. Is like, yep, some dude rolled up to the Wendy's, not even walked inside the Wendy's. He rolled up through the drive-through and pulled a gun on the fucking cashier and robbed the fucking Wendy's at like 2 p.m.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like fucking, that's just like down there in Prince George's and shit. You know what I mean? Fucking like, Prince George's is one of the most fucking horrible places on the fucking planet. But it's right goddamn next door to fucking like all that fucking good shit down there by fucking DC and you know what I mean, all those really nice fucking neighborhoods by the fucking airport and shit.
Oh yeah, dude, it's quarantined off essentially from the rest of the area by two major state highways and 1 major interstate, and then the Beltway. Like it's nice little quarter. Like it's like from 450, 495, and then I forget the name of the highway. I want to say it's
695.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's like in between that little triangle of roads, just right there. About maybe what'd you say, like 80 to 100 blocks, like square blocks worth of land, just ghetto as fuck.
Oh my god, like that's where they had like I don't know if y'all heard about the tide trade, right? The black market tide trade thing, right? But that's where that was. That's where like the biggest part of it was in Prince George's right there. Fucking like they were literally selling heroin for fucking Tide laundry detergent and shit.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
You guys want to hear some shit? Fucking pisses me off. I'm buying a security camera. Some motherfucker in the middle of the night fucking shattered my Camaro's windshield, man. I find out who did it, I'm popping a motherfucker. Like, I'm just waiting. I'm going to buy a security camera. I'm just going to wait till after I get that bitch fixed. Anybody come near that fucker. The rock was fucking the size of my fist, and it was laying on my hood. You cock-sucking motherfuckers. I mean, you know what I mean?
Wait a minute. One of your neighbors just threw a rock at your fucking Camaro's windshield.
I'm guessing it's one of the neighbors. I mean, I doubt some random motherfucking Black Lives Matter guy was like, this house, that Camaro. You know what I mean? Yeah, one of these motherfuckers that don't like me. Yeah.
Like, do you still fly the Confederate flag outside of the house?
No, I brought it in. I didn't want it ripped down and burned. I got my Don't Tread on Me flag outside, and yeah, I already hear you saying it, Pinoid. I am a fucking nerd. I got my House Stark fucking banner flying outside.
Of course you would.
Hey, winter is coming, all right?
I'm not going to judge.
Do what you do, man. Do what you do. You know what I mean? Like, fucking...
Yeah. There's this place, A1 Glass. They'll do it for $319 and give me a lifetime warranty. So I'm gonna go through them. I gotta get it fixed before it hits winter. That crack will just shatter the whole windshield.
Did you first did you check junkyards for a fucking windshield?
No, I went ahead and called the windshield people. I didn't want to. I helped my stepdad do a windshield, and he fucked up the seal, and we had to redo it like 2-3 times. I didn't want to deal with that bullshit.
Gotcha. You ain't got no faith in yourself as a mechanic. I understand.
Hey, it is what it is.
Here's a piece of news for you guys. I don't know how old this is, but you know the dude who committed the shooting in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently his sister turned him in.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
I didn't hear about that yet.
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that. She's like, yeah, that sounded exactly like my piece of shit brother. Like, yeah, girl, get him.
Oh yeah, props to her. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the article real quick. It's from W&D. 48-year-old suspect in the fatal shooting of a Trump supporter in Portland, Oregon, Saturday night was turned into police by his sister. Michelle Forrest Reinhall, I think is how you say the last name.
We'll go with that.
Michael Forrest Reinhall, who calls himself 100% Antifa, is accused of shooting 39-year-old Portland resident Aaron Danielson in the chest after most of the cars in the caravan organized by a Trump group, Patriot Prayer, had left the city. Danielson, described as a supporter of the Vancouver, Washington-based group, died in the street outside the parking garage. Reinhold's 36-year-old sister said she was awakened Saturday morning by a phone call from someone who threatened our whole family was in danger unless we turned him over. She told the Oregonian newspaper of Portland the phone call was how she learned that her brother was the suspect in the shooting. We reached out to police and confirmed that we recognized Michael in the screenshots posted online, asked for her name not to be published. Sister said, according to the paper, Reinhold had been estranged from the family for at least 3 years. Also, during the Trump presidency, he has a son and a daughter and is split from their mother. I have friends, family, and loved ones on both sides of the conflict. Reinhold's sister told the Oregonian, violence begets violence and hatred begets hatred. This is not the solution. My heart goes out to the victim. I always has as before I even knew my brother was involved. Oh, so there you go.
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mitch, you ever see when a rock hits a windshield, how at the impact it'll be completely shattered and then stress cracks will come all the way out? That's what's going on, but it's just outside. It doesn't obstruct my view while driving, but it needs to be fixed. It gets below freezing up here in the Cascades. It will shatter the windshield. That will happen.
Yeah. They're going to turn your defrosters on or hit a fucking bump and all thing go and just spider crack across your whole fucking window.
Yeah. God damn it.
But like, yeah, man, like, what up?
Oh, I was going to say, at least they didn't fucking go all out and shatter the fucking T-top or something really expensive. You know what I mean?
The T-tops are actually pretty cheap to fucking replace the window, the fucking glass in.
Oh, really? I figured they'd be like, oh, that's specialty, and fucking charge you.
Nah. You can get the parts for that for fucking, because they make a whole lot of aftermarket T-top for shit. You know what I mean? So, like, you can get the glass or a whole new T-top for it. You know what I mean? Probably be like $200. Probably less if you pay for the fucking windshield. That's why I was saying, like, I can't believe you paid $317 for a fucking windshield.
Oh, I haven't yet. I have to set up an appointment after Labor Day because our governor is so fucking wonderful. Check this out. Came out today, another 60-day extension of state of emergency over the COVID-19 crisis. By the way, only about 200 people in the entire state have died, and most of them had pre-existing conditions. If you wipe out the pre-existing conditions, the total is under 10. Just a fun fact, you know, because we're in crisis mode. But
yeah, less than the flu at this point.
Yeah, and you know when the state of emergency ends? Election day, November 3rd.
Oh, good.
Yeah. She's not transparent at all.
I was gonna say that's pretty on the fucking nose. Like, that's a bold strategy she's taking. Yeah, we'll stop it on election day.
Yeah. I was trolling on Facebook today because I was bored out of my fucking mind. And that story popped up on a local news thing, and I saw somebody comment, I love her, and I'm voting Biden. I'm like, yeah, just make sure you don't get molested as you cast your vote.
Oh God, I'm surprised you haven't been banned by Facebook yet.
Yeah, man. Like, yo, I kept catching bans all the time. That's one of the reasons I got rid of mine.
I don't know. I'm flying below the radar. I don't know.
I don't know.
how.
Like, fucking, yeah. Like, I always got fucking banged. Like, constantly. Like, all the fucking time.
Before we get into the serious subject, which is race relations in America and how did we get to this point that we're at. Funny thing, my older brother sent me a video last night on through Facebook Messenger, right? And I open it up. I'm like, what's this? Some fucking Afghani guy fucking with a gun. I'm like, what the? Oh, shit. He's trying to clear the breach, and it fucking goes off and blows his head off. I'm like, oh, damn. What the fuck? Yeah, like he's holding a fucking AK-47, and he's trying to clear a jam, and the gun goes off and kills this Taliban guy. Just blows his fucking head off. And my older brother sent that shit to me. I was like, what the fuck?
Some fucking old school rotten.com shit.
I'm pretty sure that's not how you clear a jam.
No, it's not. No, the fucking, like, you never point a gun at yourself. Ever.
Yeah, I knew it was going to end bad when he fucking had the stock in between his feet and was fucking jamming on it. I'm like, no. How do you say stop in fucking whatever language they speak? Donkey? I don't know. But it's just stop.
Oh my God. That's fucking crazy as shit.
I'm sorry. I don't know how that's a lighter topic, but it struck me as funny.
So you want to step into race relations?
Yeah, and I want to lead off with something fairly simple. I was born in 1984. All right. Growing up, I was taught by my mom, who was born in Arkansas and raised in Louisiana. I was taught by her to not judge anybody by their race, to be colorblind, as they called it in the 90s. Nowadays, they are saying that in itself is racist because it's ignoring the systemic racism within society. Okay, I might have given them that 5 years ago, maybe, because I was naive. But looking in Oakland today, they're marching down the street saying death to America. They sound like the Taliban. They don't sound like people that want to fix anything. They sound like they want to destroy everything.
Well, yeah. All right. So here's the problem. First off, right? Everyone's broke, right? That this is really a giant economic issue, right? When it comes down to it, like, everyone's broke and everyone's been lied to for the past 30 fucking years about why we're all broke, right? Like, why things have gone the way that they have gone. Like, it's not, like, it's the fact that, like, we have stood here and gaslit everybody and told everyone that, it's like systemic racism, or fucking it's a lack of education, or, fucking it's, like a problem of fucking police brutality, or a problem of racist court systems. When the truth, the real truth, like, at this point, legitimately, is that, like, when you have a society where a majority of the a lot of people are relying upon welfare, and the welfare is only given to one of your fucking genders, right? And the men are left to fend for themselves in a place where they don't have any education and no job prospects. You're going to end up with a population of human beings who feel like they're being targeted. Like, that's really what all this is really about. Everyone's broke, and nobody has the ability to do anything about it.
Okay, if that's what it's really about, then why are we fighting each other?
Because nobody sent out the fucking second stimulus checks.
That's Nancy Pelosi's doing.
If people had that second stimulus, I know, but it doesn't matter. It does not fucking matter. Like, no one, like, if people had money in their pocket right now, they wouldn't be fucking running around screaming with their heads cut off.
Doku, jump in on this. What do you think?
As the Banshees would say, generational debt and siphoning off of wealth or just abject poverty is probably the strongest underlying cause of it. The reason that people are targeting the United States is because they feel like for some reason they've been unfairly targeted or put in a position because of systemic racism. They're going to go for the lowest hanging fruit. They're not going for the lowest common denominator, but they're trying to find the easiest excuse as to why they are in the position that they are. And when you live constantly, when you're just hearing day by day, 24/7 throughout the entire news cycle that, white people this countered with black people that, even going into an entertainment culture where you have people saying like, oh, well, white people shit, and like, I just look at rap. Rap is full of fucking ist and ism, if you really want to go down that argument. So there's a cultural aspect as to being divided, and get a bunch of people who are mad. They might laugh at one thing, like someone calling someone cracker or white bread. Most of us would like laugh at that and be like, wow, at least come up with a better fucking insult. I'm Irish. Call me a dirty potato eater or something. Be a little creative, but take that same mentality and shift the mindset from one of let it roll off your back, not give a shit or just laugh at it and go about your fucking day. Everybody's so fucking tight and on edge that, the smallest spark will set them off. And all it takes is to get a group of people like that who have so much pent up anger and hatred and angst. Well, a spark sets off, 5 people in a crowd of 1,000. Next thing you know, you got a fucking riot on your hands. And good luck having anyone to stop them when you're defunding the police because, the police are now racist too. It's easy to convince people using identity politics, check boxes, ism, phobic, and blame the problem on that just because it's a scapegoat. It allows people the escapism that they need in order to say, well, it's not my fault. It's the system's fault. It's society's fault. It allows them to absolve themselves of accountability.
Yeah, but fuck their escapism. This is our country. I'm not going to die knowing that it was my generation that lost America. Okay? Like, that's bullshit. Could you imagine being the generation of Romans that watched the barbarians tear apart Rome and watched the Western Roman Empire fall?
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of these, I could say whatever buzzwords I want, but we'll just call them the totalitarians. What these totalitarian politicians want is for this Hegelian dialectic to take place. They want to blame everything on, sexism, racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, xenophobia, whatever the fuck you want to call it, because that's a problem that's not going to be fixed because those are all cultural issues that occur naturally. It's easy to take those naturally occurring cultural issues and blame, as Pino was saying, the economic issues on that because people will riot over that kind of shit. But they won't riot over a politician withholding their stimulus checks. And then the second that you have enough cities burned down and enough people rioting in mobs, well, what does a politician come in and do if your intention is to consolidate power for the next 100 years? You come in and you provide them with a solution that's going to calm them down, stop all the rioting, stop the looting. Then you can point at that and say like, hey, look, we fixed all of these cultural problems. Everything's hunky-dory and fine and dandy. How do we do it? We increased your economic lot in life. We increased your economic position. They'll vote for you until those people die, and they'll teach their kids to vote for you. That's the type of vice grip the Democrats have had on the Hispanic, black, and female vote since the fucking 60s. It's the same fucking thing happening right now. It's just the reason that they're moving they're moving a little bit fast is because Trump has actually shown, hey, look, we can fix all of these issues, and it's really easy. All you need is just a bunch of politicians to do their fucking jobs, as opposed to, kicking the can down the street so you can campaign on it for re-election 4 years later. That's what they really don't like about him. And remember what Bill Maher was saying? He almost hopes for a recession because it'll make it more difficult for Donald Trump to get reelected. They want this shit. They want to be the saviors. They want to have the Messiah complex.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just that, but being the Messiah power, right? Because if you're seen as the individuals who are the solution to the problem, you'll stay in power.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what a lot of people don't know. It's like a lot of people just don't look at it that way. They don't look at it as, fucking these motherfuckers are setting themselves up and playing these fucking games to where they don't really care about you. They care about their power. And they care about their fucking their dynamic of how they're gonna live the rest of their fucking for the next 30 or 40 fucking years and shit.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. They want generational power extended, and they want to do that using the Hegelian dialectic. I mean, I know it's old, it's easy to call out, but the thing is, it's been tested, and it's been tested to be effective. That's been proven. So they're creating a problem, and the way they're actually springboarding this problem into fruition is by going off of these these cultural differences, these already naturally occurring, as Mike Tyson would say, the bluebirds fly with the bluebirds, the redbirds fly with the redbirds. That's just the way things work. Because
Muhammad Ali.
Oh, Muhammad Ali, my bad. But they're taking that already naturally occurring friction within society and they're amplifying it to 100, so that it gets to the point where any little spark that hits the fucking hits the pavement's gonna set a fucking fire off, and that's exactly what happened. Now all they have to do is be the solution.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Follow me here. A political system is reliant upon us granting it a part of our own rights. Us as individuals, which form a collective, we grant the government a certain amount of rights. In exchange for those rights, we demand our borders be protected and our trade to be regular amongst each other. Other than that, the government really has no business being involved. That's right. I left out healthcare. I left out Social Security. I left out education, all for a goddamn reason, because we're talking about a federal system. All of that is reliant upon the powers that you grant as an individual to your state. These United States. Okay? People forget that. And by the way, we're not a democracy.
Well, I mean, all right, look, when it comes down to it, it's a military, right, and to set up fucking market, right? That's really all the government's really there for.
Yeah, but what let's classify not all black people, not all Hispanics, not all Asians, not all white people.
Yeah, look, man, we can talk.
They is Black Lives Matter.
Generalities.
They is the radicals amongst us on both sides, which are really the same side, but yeah, I digress.
Yeah, we're not going to get into horseshoe theory.
Yeah, the thing is, when you stop treating everybody equally, but under the law, which they have stopped doing in these Democrat-ran cities. Okay, you notice the 17-year-old in jail. How many Antifa members have been let out for assault and battery, assault in the first degree, attempted murder? And I would call that attempted murder when they kicked that gentleman after they ripped him out of his car, right? Property damage.
Yeah.
All of this. They all get let out. No charges pressed. That guy that killed somebody was arrested previously and released. No charges filed. He could have not been on the streets to kill somebody. Okay, we are a nation of laws, and those laws need to go across the board to everybody. or else it doesn't work. Because all politics is, all government is theory. It's ideas. It's a set of ideas that we have had mature over generations. And it's a compact between the people. That's it. There is nobody else because the government is made up of people. Go ahead. I went on a tangent long enough.
I mean, like I would remotely agree with you, right? But there's a lot of what our government does that are laws that are bullshit, and we haven't had a conversation in probably, I want to say, fucking shit, 60 years about what the fucking proper role of our government is, right? And we haven't had a conversation about what our government should and should not be fucking doing, right? We haven't had a conversation about getting rid of these worthless piece of shit laws in like 60 goddamn years. Like, we haven't had that talk. And I think we should have a bunch of times. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you. I've been saying this for probably as long as I've been talking politics. The type of governmental structure that we've had for the past 50, 60 years in this country, has been in a constant state of expansion and in consolidation. Like the more and more federal government has expanded, the more and more consolidated its power becomes. And that's why you see these random useless laws pushed on the books that, maybe there was a bad yield in corn one year back in the fucking 70s. And so some politician from, Nebraska or fucking Dakota will come in and they'll push this law that's supposed to be temporary. But then they'll revise it and it'll sit on the books and nobody ever does anything about it. But you still, all these people you have in order to prop up this essentially industry, it's what the government's become. All these people you have to hire, both for the government or outsourced to contractors, it just grows and grows and grows. So you want to talk about why our budget deficit is so fucking high? We have to pay all these people for shit that they're barely ever even fucking doing. Like, have you ever been to an office where you have to file for unemployment or get like SSDI? I mean, fuck. I know the veterans out there already know how much of a pain in the ass the VA is to deal with. Half these people are overpaid anyways, and they don't do their fucking job, and the other half aren't even needed in the first place.
Well, and here's another part of this, right? Like legit, there's so many moving parts of this fucking conversation that like no one's talking about like a lot of this shit that's really causing all this fucking problem. Right? Not only do you have to pay their fucking salaries, right, but you also have to pay for their fucking pensions, right, and pay for their fucking health insurance, and pay for their fucking, bullshit ass fucking nonsense. And on top of that, they're all fucking union workers, right? Who fucking stand here and can't be fucking fired.
Yeah, I have a beef with the unions myself, but I
don't have a beef with the unions. I have a beef with the government union, right? With a union that says we're gonna rob, like, because they don't negotiate. When's the last time you've seen a government worker strike?
Teachers union strikes all the time.
Yeah, but they're fucking, the teachers union legit are a local fucking thing, right? The federal workers never fucking strike. State workers never fucking strike. They just give them what the fuck they want and then they fucking keep going.
Yeah, let me address the chat here. Mitch the Ripper has a few good points here. Quote, guard, protect, and cherish your land, for there is no afterlife for a place that started out as heaven. Charles O. Montana, 1929. Mitch also says that he adopted the position that we are a nation of rights. Yes, but those laws protect the rights, and the law must be equal across the board. It has to be. John Adams, that is the only stance he had that I agree with post-revolution, honestly, because the Alien and Sedition Act was ridiculous. But that's, once again, a different conversation. But we are a nation of laws. And laws must look at facts. It has to be facts. It can't be emotion. I'm sorry, ladies. You can't inject your emotional well-being into a law, which is what hate crime is. It's emotional. Oh my God, that white guy beat up that black guy. Why? Not because he wanted to rob him, even though he robbed him, but because he was black. Okay, spinning around. That black guy kidnapped that special needs kid, tortured him, made him say anti-political things against Trump, recorded it on Facebook, and that's not a hate crime at all. Perfectly fine. I know I'm reaching into the Wayback Machine a couple years. I get it. But once again, 17-year-old goes to help, was asked by the business, by the way, to protect his business that was burnt the night before, had a first aid kit to help protesters and regular civilians alike, and he's arrested and in jail. If the press and the Democrats get their way, he'll get life in prison. He is 17 years old trying to do the right thing, and he defended himself. Have you seen that video?
I've seen all of them.
He falls back how many times? The mob is chasing a man with a fucking AR-15. Are you stupid? Are you trying to get shot? This is how you get shot.
No, they're children. Look, most of these motherfuckers are still stuck. And like, yo, this is why I'm fucking so anti-college, right? And I'm anti-school, because it creates a false environment that breeds this type of mentality, right? Like, when you live at home with your folks, or if you fucking go to school, or if you're in a fucking college, you're not living in the same reality that me and you do every fucking day, right? You don't have to go to work. You don't have to fucking, you know what I'm saying, like, perform for your fucking boss. You don't have to deal with regular people who will punch you in the fucking mouth. You know what I mean? If you fucking pop off wrong, you live in a fucking mentality that no one will ever harm you.
Well, yeah.
And when somebody does.
And Pinoy, that's not even bringing up being a parent where you're responsible for other people's lives. I'm married and I have kids. I'm responsible for their lives. Yeah, my wife is also responsible. But me as a husband, I take it upon myself to protect her, obviously.
Well, and that touches on what I meant earlier when I was talking about when you have family bonds. And I don't care if it's the wife that's bringing home the bread, and the guy's a stay-at-home dad, or if it's the dad bringing home the bread, he's got a stay-at-home wife. I don't care about that. I don't care if both parents work and their kids have to go to an after-school program, or like, the older brother or sister has to babysit the younger ones. That family bond still creates something outside of government so that they're not reliant upon government. Yeah, that is antithetical to what the post-World War II political intellectual demagogues actually want. They don't want a society where the parents are responsible for the children, and the children are responsible to do their own homework, and the older brother is responsible for the younger brother, and the household as a whole is its own self-sufficient unit. What they want is that your kid is more property of the state than it is of the child, and you're a property of the state as a worker. That's what they want. They essentially want you enslaved both financially and both socially to the state. And
well, again, like, yo, we have 60% of our fucking nation goes to fucking college every year. That's 20 fucking 2 years of your life is spent basically in a fucking arrested development state of fucking adolescence.
Well, yeah, you're a slave to the state. And once you get out of that environment and you get into the working environment, well, what happens when at least 50% of the market that used to be a free market now has some form of government hands in the fucking cookie jar? You're still a slave to the government.
Yeah, no, I think Pinoy's going a different way here, though, because I think I understand what you're saying. They're stuck in a different reality to where they need safe spaces even in this separate reality. So they're no longer prepared to come out of college, for the most part, once again, not all, but they're not prepared for real life. Where people like me, I was on my own at 16, man. Like, I've been living real life since I was 16 years old. I mean,
well, again, Dodge. Let's use the legal term that's used. They're dependent. You can have this illusion of being independent all you want, but at the end of the day, as you've been groomed, as Pino was saying, into having this kind of childish mindset mentality, you are a dependent. Take that word and apply it to any aspect of somebody's life, from 18 all the way up to now in their 40s. How many people do you know that would fall into the legal definition of being quote quote dependent?
well, and the sad part also is during Obama's administration, he upped the how old you could be on your parents' insurance to 25. Man, you can go and die for your country at 17 with a waiver. You can be on your parents' insurance till you're 25 years old. I mean, what happened between the time when mankind was getting married at 16 because we were dead at 38 to now? Because we do live longer, but it's not that big of a stretch, and a majority of it is shitty, right? I mean, you gotta take a handful of fucking pills. You got this shitty ass walker. They fucking you get fucking Alzheimer's and dementia, and they plug you in the fucking machines and still keep you around. I mean, that's not quality life time here, right? What happened in culture that shifted everything is my question.
I think that question's twofold. The first is, we haven't, to be blunt, I know this is going to piss off a lot of people, but to be blunt, we haven't had a real war in 50 years. I think the last real war was the fucking Korean War. And MC just corrected us. It's 26, Mad. Not even 25. It's 26.
Fucking pathetic.
But yeah, we haven't had a real war. So, what's the saying? Hard times bring strong men. Easy times breed weak men. And so there's that aspect to it. I mean, the last thing we had close to a real depression was back in I don't even consider 2008 to be a depression. That was a financial crisis, but I don't consider that a depression. The last time we had a real depression where it affected what many would consider the real economy was back in, what was it, 72, when they had the gas shortage? I think that's the closest we've been.
I just know it was
no, because it was 86. 86 was real bad.
Oh, is that what I'm
86
thinking
was
of?
real bad.
Okay. I know there's bad
Well,
ones.
no. The gas prices, oil crisis was 72, right? But like, that was just a shortage in oil. It really fucking, like, I mean, it affected like everybody as far as like being able to ration out, fuel and stuff of this nature. But like, it wasn't really like a fucking financial depression. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I don't even consider that a depression. I just say that's the closest we've really been to any economically difficult times.
Oh wait,
I think we might be getting close to something that could rival the Great Depression as far as how it affects, people like on their daily life level.
Oh wait, man, fucking 2008, 2009.
Even then, though, that I still don't think that. I still don't think that was nearly as bad as what the depression and the.
Well, no, it's the only reason the depression hit as bad as what it did is because there was no social safety net.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? Like, there was no welfare. There was no, like, the government right now already at the moment hands out fucking welfare to fucking food stamps to 50 million fucking people, something like that, just to begin with. And then if you want to really be technical with the amount of individuals receiving government motherfucking handouts, the number's like 163 million people.
Well, and also ever since it started post 60s, but I'll say it really kicked off in the early 90s, where the government has this very loose money policy and a very hands-on approach to any sort of economic hiccup that we run into. I'd say we really saw that plan and how it works back to the .com bubble.
You can go back to Greenspan. For that mentality of fucking, low interest rates and, fucking the beginnings of the modern monetary theory as far as shit's concerned. But the reality is that we've been monetizing our fucking debt for 19 fucking 53, something like that.
I think it was either 53 or 54. I forget what the name of the
Korean War
cast was. Yeah.
Well, no, it was for the Korean War, right? And that's why 72 happened, right? Because during the Korean War and during the beginning of the Vietnamese War, fucking America was spending money like drunken sailors, and like we weren't fucking actually paying for any of it. And then, when it came time that we were still under the Bretton Woods Agreement of, we're supposed to have like our dollar be able to be like traded in for what was it? It was $35 an ounce or $38 an ounce, some bullshit like that. And like fucking East Germany or West Germany, France, and Switzerland all tried to fucking call in their fucking gold during 1972, and that's when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And so when they took us off the gold standard, they ended up having our dollars become fucking worthless. And, at the same time, we kind of ran out of domestic oil production. And we ended up having a fucking oil crisis where OPEC basically kicked the United States out. Because we used to be part of OPEC back then, right? But, all those original wells in Pittsburgh and Texas kind of ran dry that we had been running heavy on. And, we ended up fucking having our fucking currency, basically inflate throughout the 70s. That's why, like, if you bought a house in like the fucking 70s, you fucking basically had, the fucking bank ate your goddamn mortgage because look at the fucking inflation rate and shit. How much your fucking house was goddamn worth. And, it ended up being this loose monetary policy after that of where we basically just monetized all of our fucking debts. And we've been trying to offload it internationally, but it's really been coming back to bite us in the ass. Because if you think about it, back in 1998, a house was $150,000, brand new. Today, a new house is $330,000. Our paychecks take home paychecks are 32 grand on average for a single individual.
All right, I got a super chat. Thank you, Dade. I appreciate it. $5. By technical definition, we are already in another depression. The national debt shows that. We literally have no money. Thanks, boomers.
Well, we haven't had any money ever.
Well, here's the thing, because Pinoy, what I want to touch on, you brought up a good point, because several months, I think it was like 2 months ago, I got into a discussion with some PhD from Corpus Christi and some PhD from Portland, Oregon. So you can guess what their political leanings are. But I think it was like what 1910, 1912, somewhere in that time frame. That's when the quote gold confiscation happened, where we switched over to a fiat system where it was illegal to own gold more than like 1 ounce, and that was only for jewelry purposes, and everything after that was considered a crime.
1934.
1934. Thank you. That's what it was. That's when that happened, but that only applied to U.S. citizens. So the reason a lot of foreign entities started using the U.S. dollars because for them it was still backed by gold. So if you're the Bank of England, per se, you could actually request that the U.S. dollars that you were holding could be exchanged for gold, and that was one of the things that was propping up the dollar as at that point in time, a global.
At what point?
It started in 1904, but it really didn't gain traction until World War II. And the reason that it did is because Europe was in massive debt to us. It's once we started experiencing any slight hiccup that made Europe have cold feet about holding dollars and U.S. Treasury bonds instead of actual physical assets. They essentially did the same thing that happened to the run on the banks that led to the Great Depression. And they started exchanging their U.S. dollars for gold, and that threatened to put us in a deflationary cycle. And that's what pushed Nixon to do what he did. And that's when I say we were truly off the gold standard at that point.
There was a fucking treaty signed in 1944 that literally tied their fucking currencies to ours and forced us to hold our fucking dollars at $38 an ounce.
Yep, and that's also when we replaced the pound sterling as it's not called the reserve currency, but it's something else. But it's essentially the same thing.
It is called the reserve currency.
I
Right?
thought there
Because
was another
basically
name for it at the time.
no, it was because it was a basket of currencies that were all tied to the U.S. dollar.
Okay, well, so
Right.
this thing was a long time coming, but it had its grounding in in 34, and then it got solidified in 54, and it wasn't until 72 when Nixon took us off the gold standard completely that we really shifted to a purely fiat system.
Well, yeah. I mean, the dollar has always been fiat. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking, because we ended up leaving the actual gold sitting here and like fucking not being able to trade our U.S. currency in for actual fucking gold. I think in like 1930, I think it was 1934, 1935, something like that. And the 1944 deal with Bretton Woods, it was only the larger banks, institutions, and fucking states, right? Not talking about like states like North Dakota, but states like Germany, Britain, you know what I mean, fucking, fucking Switzerland, whatever, who were allowed to fucking ask for their dollars back in motherfucking gold.
Yeah, individuals like you or me could not go to a bank and say like, "Hey, here's my $35. I want my ounce of gold." Like that was actually like it was illegal. I think it was a federal crime.
Well, no. It wasn't a federal crime. If you had a gold note, you could trade it in for the gold, right? Back then, because the government had to honor its notes that it had, right? But it meant that you no longer had fucking the ability to transferability of your fucking dollars into actual assets.
Well, and it kind of crippled the whole idea of being able to exchange gold and silver back and forth, which, to quote, I forget which Rothschild it was, but it was one of the Rothschilds who said, dollars aren't money, gold is money. I would say we didn't go to a fiat, or we didn't have any, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank. We didn't have any of like the hallmarks or any of the, I'll probably remember the word in like 5 minutes from now, but we weren't a fiat system until we stopped using, I would argue, silver dollars and, gold dollars, things like that. Once we moved away from precious metals as coinage and started replacing them with banknotes, that's when we started to move down the road to fiat.
Yeah, that happened in 1770 fucking 8.
Right? Even into the 1800s, though, we were still using Morgan silver dollars as currency. But I mean, there's
Morgan didn't exist yet.
Well, no, I'm saying until it's like the 1860s, because we still, you still had Morgan silver dollars, Carson silver dollars, things like that.
The American currency fucking collapsed in the 1860s.
Well, that's why I'm saying that's around the time we started moving to notes.
Collapsed in the 1860s because they were printing fiat currency and had inflation. Yeah. Now, I have a question that gets it back on track. You guys were talking about economics.
That always happens when me and Pinoid are on a stream.
Well, here's a question.
What?
How many families that owned property in these United States back 1865 and before still have the property in the family, do you think?
Almost none at this point. I mean, like it got to be like maybe 2 or 3%.
I would say even 2 or 3% is a high number.
Yeah, like I'm gonna tell you what. Like the only people I can think of off the top of my head would be large investment firms
and small families like my family down Louisiana have had that property in the family for probably not that long, but years and years. So there are some people in the South that have property that long, and I bet you up in the Northeast as well, right?
I would argue
No.
that if you're talking about property that's been owned and is still owned by the original property owners, like by the family, that number pre 1900 probably less than 1%, and I would argue pre 1930s probably between 1 and 1.5%.
Yo,
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you like this, right? Because it's the sheer amount of immigration into the Northeast, right, has legitimately like made everything change hands so many fucking times. You know what I mean? Because everybody comes in and then they move west and they move west and they move west, right? So like, and you're talking about like, especially with fuck, man, the expansion of the suburbs and the building up of the middle part of this country and the West Coast and shit, dude. Like, how many of these fucking families, didn't stay, what I mean, in the same fucking place? Like, for instance, like, but the reason why I say like the investment banks, like Lehman Brothers or fucking shit, the fuck, some of like the bigger banks, they got started as plantations in the South back in the day.
Yeah, and next question. Have you ever seen a mule that could live for almost 200 years?
No.
What?
Okay. I think we can all agree no, right?
Yeah.
You just explain why reparations don't work. Thank you.
Yeah, I know why they don't work. Like, you can't stand here. All right, how do I put this? You can't sit here and put the weight of all of America's sins on the people who legitimately weren't even here until like 50, 60 years afterwards.
Watching the show.
Right? Like, you're talking about 100 and what is it? Something like 78 or 80 million people in America are just Italian by themselves.
Well, yeah, and like, okay, so California wants to pay reparations. That's funny to me because other than a few Confederates in San Francisco, that California wasn't a slave state and it wasn't a slave territory, really. So it's really funny because the amount of reparations the state of California would owe is absolutely a big goose egg. So, okay, thank you for the virtual signaling. Yeah, are you trying to make sure BLM doesn't burn down the governor's mansion? I mean, what's going on here, guys? Because, I don't know, a month ago you were saying you want to repeal the Civil Rights Act. What?
Well, and the argument they always use is, well, it's a generational theft of wealth. It's like, well, how? If you want to use the argument of generational theft of wealth, just look at the way the government and the banking systems, and like, you could apply that argument to pretty much anything. And it's not contingent based upon the color of your skin. It's not even contingent purely based on ethnicity. You want to talk about generational wealth theft? Has at any point in time anyone in your family tree who had money suddenly like went bankrupt or something happened to them where their assets were seized due to some sort of reason? Could that asset that was seized for unforeseen circumstances have been passed along and helped keep wealth in the family? Would your family be old money if that didn't happen? You could literally take that argument and apply it to anything. It's retarded. I know there's a specific term. It's escaping me at the moment. But
Well,
it's ridiculous.
And I'm going to throw it to MC here in a second, but Mitch, the Ripper, says, to engage in reparations would be to work corruption of blood. There is constitutional basis to deny reparations on those grounds. Okay, see, the thing is, the reparations paid to the Japanese internment victims was okay. You know why? Because it was paid directly to the people that suffered. Like, they were there. Even if they were children, they were there. Reparations at this point is ridiculous. And why can't somebody in America still make a living wage? Because that basically, isn't that what they're arguing? We can't live with your set of rules. right?
Well, no, what they're arguing is that the reason that they're poor is because wealth was stolen from their family, like not them themselves, but their father or their grandfather or their grandfather's father. That's the argument they're trying to make.
But that argument
wait.
wait.
The reason why me and Doku fucking went into all the shit we went into, all right, is because literally they stole the value of your fucking work, right? That's really what that shit was about. They generationally stole the value of your work, and black people think it's only them. That's the fucking problem. And that's really where it's at. It's because of the fact that they fucking took our currency, printed it into oblivion, caused inflation to the point where now you literally can't make a fucking livable wage unless you're making $30 a fucking hour. That's just the reality. Like, if you wanted to set a minimum wage to, like, keep up with, like, 1970s fucking inflation, you'd literally have to set the minimum wage at, like, $25 to $30 an hour. And it's not because of the fact, all right, that, like, this is some socialist thing. It's because of the fact that we printed fuck tons of money to pay for a military to continue to defend a fucking world.
The military is not the issue, Pinoy.
The military's a big part of the issue, but it's also the welfare. Shut up! Look, I have the numbers. Okay, it's 1.5 trillion, 1.5 trillion for Medicare, 1.6 trillion for Social Security. All right, 1.1 trillion for fucking education, another trillion for the fucking military. These are all problems.
Sorry, the military in and of itself is the only thing that's constitutionally supposed to be there. And I'm not saying that the military doesn't need to be drawn back. That's not the problem. But when you start talking about where the real problem is, where the overspending is, okay, we take in taxes over $3.5 trillion a year. Okay,
yeah.
If the military, the only thing constitutional, the only area where you're supposed to be actually spending by the Constitution is only $1 trillion. You're still spending $3 trillion over that, and you think that the military is the problem? No.
Again.
And repeat it. No. Hold on, Pinoy. Because when you constantly put that first, what you do is you basically validate these people who go, oh, we can pay for unlimited health care if we just cut back the military.
No, that's a dumb fucking equation. The math doesn't work out on that. That's fucking dumb.
Of course it doesn't work out, but when you mention the military first and you put it as the priority, when it isn't, okay.
It is. I can explain to you why. All right? I can explain to you why it is the fucking priority. All right? Because before Social Security and Medicare got super ramped up during the last fucking decade.
Before where it is, what the past was. Talk about how it is right now.
No, I can't talk about how it is right now because I'm talking about how the dollar got fucking destroyed. The dollar got fucking destroyed because after 1991, when the Soviet Union fell, we kept enforcing the fucking world's fucking trade routes and being this giant fucking umbrella to protect everybody when we had no fucking reason to do so.
But that didn't expand, all right, nearly as fast as the rest of the social programs did.
It's kept pace.
No, it hasn't kept pace. It isn't even close to what it was before. The United States military used to be 50% of our budget. It's less than a quarter now. It hasn't.
Yes, I know, right? Okay, so when you think about how much money we spent on the military in, say, 2005, right? It was like fucking $300 billion, right? That's, because like fucking that's what we spent back then. Today we spend $1 trillion fucking dollars. It's the same way with Social Security and Medicare. They went the same way. They were $300 billion back then. Now they're a fucking $1 trillion and $1.5 trillion.
No, they're far more than that because there's other programs that are pushed into that. You're looking at Social Security just in that alone, while you're excluding the rest of the budgetary crap that went along with it.
No, I am not. All right, because you want to talk about welfare? I have a whole list. Legit. You can go to gsaspending.gov, like fucking legit. The fucking government spending and accountability office fucking like keeps good numbers on all of this shit and how much money is actually fucking spent. It's fucking ridiculous. And I'll agree with you. 100%. 100%. We are fucking spending too much money. But the four biggest things are Social Security, Medicare, education, and then the fucking military.
All right. And how big is the budget for the State Department?
How big's the budget for the State Department?
Yes.
It's broken up into different parts.
Okay, well, hold on there, because let's talk about where the departments are. How much is on HUD?
Fucking HUD housing is covered under welfare, and altogether welfare in the whole country only costs us fucking $300 billion a year.
No way. There is no friggin'
way. I have the numbers.
I guarantee you it isn't $300 billion. Not if you look at a specific program, perhaps. All right, but overall, when you start adding in the rest of the discretionary spending that goes along with it, all right, we end up with $4.5 trillion and less than $1 trillion of that, because it's about $800 billion, all right, for the military. And if you take a look at that perspective, all right, the one thing that the Constitution says that we're supposed to spend it on, all right, we're overspending everything else by twice that. Now, if you reduce,
would you like the numbers? Would you want the numbers?
If you reduce the military by half, in fact, if you cut out the military's entire budget, if you say we're going to whack the military completely,
we're still in debt.
That's exactly right, and it's the one thing
we're
supposed to be spending
I know.
It's the one thing that you think we need to cut first.
No, that was the thing that broke it to start with.
What broke it if it's the one thing that if you cut it out completely, all right, and we're still overspending, that isn't it.
No, that's what broke it to start with.
How could it break it to start with? What had to break it to start with was overspending on these social programs to begin with the Great Society.
You know I'm anti-social program. You know I am.
I understand that you're anti-social programs, but the problem is when you focus on the military first, you're presenting a priority system that doesn't fix shit.
No, I'm telling you, all right? I'm giving a history lesson, okay? History.
All right. History says the amount of money coming in versus the amount of money coming out. I
don't care about right now. Right now, we are fucked. We are past fucked.
Hey, both of you, just a second. Thank you. All right. How much of the military budget is then injected into our gross domestic, our GDP? Our gross domestic production, because you're talking about military spending that goes to Boeing, that goes to Lockheed Martin, that goes to defense contractors, all U.S. based, I would assume, right?
Yeah, but it's a loss. It's a write-off loss.
Going right back into the economy and right back to the government through taxes. Don't you have to deduct that?
You'd have to deduct it out of the GDP.
And also, okay, let's say we whack food stamps tomorrow. I think half the farms will go out of business. You do realize food stamps and WIC are a subsidy on our farms, basically.
Food stamps is what, about 70, between 170 and between 70 and 170 billion. I'm not sure. I realize that's a big discrepancy, but it's food stamp. The SNAP program is not as large as people think it.
Okay, that's not. But then you have other subsidies, like we subsidize the corn industry so we can have cheap.
That's actually been rolled back in the past 5 years.
Well, that's good at least. But I mean, you have to take all these things into account. Is what I'm saying. And MC, I believe you would agree. Shutting down not embassies, because we got a spy from somewhere. But pulling out of places like Germany and stuff like that, we've discussed this. That's good. And that could concentrate our troops in other areas and lower our budget at the same time.
It's the problem that you got with that kind of thinking is if you start making real cuts in the defense budgets, and they have in the past, Okay, if you take a look at the Clinton years, they made massive cuts in defense spending. The problem is all it's ever done historically is caused them to go, okay, we're going to overspend in these other little goodie programs that we run with.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, and I'm gonna tell you why. Right? It's because the fucking Medicare and Social Security are fucking non-discretionary. They just come right off the fucking top. Like there's no stopping them. You have to actually have an act of Congress to get them to not be spent on.
Well, of course, because it was started by Congress. But when you start to look at which programs you need to rein in, if you're really going to make a dent, okay, I'm not saying you can't draw down the military budget, but every time it's mentioned first, what people start thinking is if we just roll this back, we can spend more. Because that's what they've done in the past. That's how they approach it. And Pinoid, when you talk about this and you talk about the budgetary problems, if you mention the military first, the first thing they do is, well, then we'll cut the military first. Because you just placed that as the priority to cut.
Okay.
Well, I think the military should be the first place we cut. I'll be honest.
Then all you're doing is continuing the path of what we've done time and time again.
I know. But here's my issue. Legit. This is my issue. Is the USSR fell and we never fucking stopped being the world protector. The only reason we were the world's protector was so that they would help us fight the fucking Soviets. That was the agreement. Right? And then we only have 8% of our fucking GDP dependent on the goddamn fucking on international trade. And half of that's Canada and Mexico. Why are we defending the world's fucking trade routes? Why?
Look, and you're not going to get me to argue that point. The problem is, though, is that is minor in comparison to the problems we have due to the social programs and overspending.
I fucking agree with you. I completely agree.
So then why are you concentrating, worrying about all that? If you want to freeze the military and say, okay, let's freeze the military and tell these other nations to start stepping up, I have no problem with that. But when you mention what needs to be cut, your first go-to thing, because it's the easiest thing to do.
No, that was not where I was going with this at all. Was not at all where I was going with it.
You said it, Pinoy, that you would cut the military first.
I know, but that's not where I was going with this at all. that is not what the conversation was about. It was about, look, we destroyed our fucking currency by spending shit tons of money on fucking military garbage, right? Over the past
we destroyed our currency by overspending on a bunch of shit that doesn't make the country better or safer.
Okay, when it comes to military spending, what's better? One brand new 2020 stealth fucking monster that could fucking fly anywhere in the world and drop any bomb known to man, but it costs $2 billion and we only have enough money for like 5, or a bunch of F-22s that we could just start reproducing and lowering costs.
Even better, like fucking 50 drones. That's what's better.
So what I'm saying is we get with the times and think like a businessman.
We already do. We already do this. This is all already done. Right? MC's just upset because I said, look, the military was out of fucking control in the 90s and early 2000s for no fucking reason.
I disagree with you because you don't remember what the 80s were like.
Well, no, I want to remind
the 80s were over. The Soviet Union had fallen. That's why
the Soviet Union fell because we increased spending, all right, in the late 80s. All right, that's what caused it to fall.
Agreed, right? And it was done.
We still had several other hot spots that needed to be resolved first. Now the will wasn't there, just like the will's not.
We didn't do it.
Some other places. What?
We didn't do it.
Well, because we didn't do it doesn't mean that we don't need to do it.
We didn't do it, and we still don't we have only one place in the world we need to worry about right now. There's only one place, all right, and that's fucking North Korea. And I personally think that if we let Japan, Korea, China, and fucking Vietnam deal with them, we'll fucking deal with them.
First of all, there's no way that the South Koreans are going to sit up there and have any kind of agreement with the Japanese. That's just not going to happen.
They've already made agreements with the Japanese.
They've got those agreements are only begrudgingly because we're there. If you do not understand the animosity between the Koreans and the Japanese, and it's real and it exists to this day.
I do understand, and I know about it. All right, and I get the rape of fucking, Korea that happened under fucking Japanese rule and all the bullshit that goes. I get all that mentality. Or I do. All right, but what I'm telling you is the fucking Koreans hate the Chinese fucking more.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Or no.
I want to remind you though. The second you think I don't need this in the next war, that's exactly what you need. Like they're talking about scaling back our aircraft carriers and stuff like that. I don't think that's necessarily the best idea because that's the extension of our reach is the carriers and the battle groups. When it comes,
they're also giant floating targets.
That's what everything around it's for, to protect it.
Yeah, I'm saying they're giant floating. It takes one good torpedo, right? One fucking good torpedo, which China has at this point, right? One torpedo and the fucking aircraft carrier is fucked. And literally it's $20 billion on the fucking bottom of the fucking ocean.
How many engagements was the Enterprise in World War II, MC?
Well, the Enterprise was in a lot of like 30 engagements, but that's what happened in World War II and what's going to happen in the next war, two different things.
Yeah, these are two separate wars. Like, dude, World War II wasn't even nuclear, right? Until the very, very fucking end.
Well, if you're talking to throw in the nukes, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so much shit.
You're no longer dealing with the moment you throw a nuke. The moment somebody throws a nuke, all right, all bets are off. It doesn't matter what the conventional weapon systems are.
Exactly. But I would argue that nukes aren't going to be thrown unless the country is about to fall completely. Like, I'm playing, that Conflict of the Nations game, and it's like day 43, right? And my coalition's like, oh my God, this other coalition is too strong. They have Europe, we have the whole Western Hemisphere. It should be a good fight. But my coalition fell off, so I'm Peru, and I'm trying to hold everything. So I'll be back
in a little bit. I gotta fucking grab a drink.
Okay. I built up everything inside my country, and now I have nuclear subs out, and I nuked Paris, I nuked Berlin, I nuked London. I'm just throwing nukes because it's the end. They're gonna take me out. So I might as well take as many of the bastards with me as possible. That carries on into the real world scenario. The United States will not use a tactical nuke unless we really fucking have to.
Right, but the United States
or India? Pakistan and India worry me.
Well, I think you got to be more worried about the freaking Islamic states than you do, which includes Pakistan, unfortunately. India doesn't bother me a whole lot. China bothers me a bit because China can make a lot of mistakes, right? And still think that it can get away with shit.
Well, and we were going to talk about, we were talking about race relations in the country, which I do want to get back to, but Pinoid and Doku, you can unmute. They were they got into the economics. Now, if you did stop subsidizing the housing market through HUD, the farms through SNAP, and all these other things, and then you took away the minimum wage, don't you think that would stifle inflation? I happen to fall with Mises on this one. The Institute, not the rapper that we played at the beginning of the show.
Well, stifle inflation? No. Because
the cost would go down to produce the goods. Therefore, inflation would go down. The price of goods would go back to normal.
Well, are you talking long term? Are you talking stability in the long term? In the long term, would it be good? Yeah, but not in the short term. In the short term, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have uncertainty until everything realigns itself. All right. So the best thing you could do right now, if you really wanted to rein in spending, the best thing you could do right at this point in time is tell the government, okay, we're all spending is frozen. You're not going to do any kind of increase in spending. All right, that's how you do this. And then you say, okay, we're going to do a 1% cut across the board through all departments. All right, regardless what priority they give. All right. You do a 1% cut until you balance the budget. That's the best way and the most efficient way without causing mass chaos throughout the government that you could do it with. That's the only way you're going to do this.
What about the was it Rand Paul in 2016 that was pushing the penny plan? Cut 1 cent out of everything, and then it would actually total up to be quite a bit, and then do that every year following and start to scale it back a penny.
But you have to freeze spending first. Before, if you're going to talk about the will to balance the budget, the first thing you have to do is, if you got the will to balance the budget, to make budget cuts, before you can make a budget cut, you got to have the will to do a budget freeze. Do you see a budget freeze happening anywhere? The only department that has ever suffered through budgetary freezes has been the military. All the other departments have never seen a budget freeze.
Well, no, and you've heard this before because I've told this a million times, but I used to sell police equipment. Best time of the year was always at the end of each quarter of spending, because the budget that they don't spend, they get cut down to that level. So they buy shit they don't need. I was making high commissions at that time, at least 4 times a year.
All right, and that's exactly how a lot of this stuff goes. But in order to cut spending, Congress, you got to have control of Congress, and Congress has to have the will to cut spending. You're not going to cut it any other way. And before you can even cut it, you've got to freeze it. You got to demonstrate to the country that if you freeze it, they can survive it. If you freeze it for 2 years, then people say, okay, we can handle this. And that's when you come back and go, okay, across the board, okay, we're going to sit up there and start making a cut. And the first thing that'll happen is there's a lot of waste and there's a lot of abuse, and they're within all the departments of the government, specifically in human capital. And you would start to cut some of that dead weight. That's the first thing that has to go.
Yeah, and Doku, do you want to throw your 2 cents in here? Because I want to get back to the actual topic.
Yeah, I'm kind of with MC on this one. If you're going to start trying to roll back government spending, you do need to freeze any sort of expansion. Like you need to freeze the budget where it is right now. Like it can't go up. It needs to stay right where it is before it can go down.
All right, so MC, first off, the guy that killed the Patriot Prayer member got arrested. He was turned in by his own sister, so props to her. I don't know if you had heard that yet.
Yeah, she got a call though. She got a call from the Fed saying you realize, of course, if we catch him in with you're complicit in harboring a felon.
I didn't hear that part. Oh,
yeah, she had their family got a little call.
I mean, there in the article it did say they got a call, but they didn't say from who. So it's good to have that clarified. That's an important detail that they seem to have left out.
And President Trump went to I can't say the city's name.
Kenosha.
Thank you. I don't want to butcher it. He went there. He participated in a pretty much like a town hall setting type thing. The mayor had said repeatedly that they don't want him there. He went anyway. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Trump's pushing things, and he's making a point, right? which is if you sit up there and let us bring in the National Guard, this area quiets down. You'll notice ever since they really deployed the National Guard, you haven't seen the rioting anymore, have you? Although they'll come out and they'll do their little protests, all right? But they're not rioting anymore, are they? They're not burning things. They're not setting trash cans on fire, all right? And when they say go home, they go home.
Oh, and also another thing that this does is, yeah, the media will sit out there and say, well, it's mostly peaceful. They'll ignore the burning building in the background. But what they can't do is what they've been doing this whole time, where the president's out there in the daytime going and inspecting all of these different buildings that have been completely burned to the ground, sack of Rome style. The president's there. He knows their ratings are contingent upon it. They have to put a spotlight on it. If they don't, he will.
But they avoid certain things because he also, when he was in Kenosha, met with the family of Jacob Blake.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they don't ignore certain things, but they can't ignore it to the same extent that they have been up until this point.
Oh yeah, and then of course the comparison with Biden becomes quite stark because Biden gives a 12-minute speech, maybe a 30-minute little rundown in Pittsburgh the day before, and then goes home the next day. He's canceled all of his things because he just can't get it back out in the public again.
Well, and also a lot of people like us that follow this because it's part of what we do on the internet. We're an outlier, but just you normal people who are getting their news 9 to 5, whether it's Fox or CNN, when they hear like, oh, there was rioting, these businesses are burned down, they get an interview from like one person, some lady's crying. People empathize or sympathize with it, but it doesn't fully hit home as, when you see like they hear, oh, a building was burned down. It doesn't hit home the same way where you're looking at a car lot where every single car looks, like it's been sitting out in the elements for the past 100 years. And the entire dealership building itself is nothing more than, stone and broken bent rebar from the heat that, there's not a single area of the building standing taller than 2 feet. When they say burn down, they mean literally completely burned to the ground. Not a thing, not even a shell left standing. Like that hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah, and speaking of the riots, so last night it was the mayor of Portland's birthday, and they decided to light a fire outside in celebration, of course, and fire off fireworks at his window in his high-rise apartment. In celebration. I mean, don't mind the fact that they were out there yelling, we'll kill you and resign and all that. I mean, really, it's just their way of saying happy birthday to you.
Ignore the fact that they set the building on fire?
Well, I mean, I was going to get to that, but go ahead. I mean, that was their gift. Warmth. It was the warmth of the city.
Yeah. And of course, what did your governor say?
I don't listen to cunts, but
she came up with the plan to deal with the protesters.
Yeah, calling in the sheriff's department, and the sheriff's departments all around Portland politely told her to eat a dick.
So it's going to continue, right? These riots are out of control. I kind of bashed memes probably a little too hard this morning on this morning's podcast, which I kind of need to apologize for. But the thing is what I've been trying to say is, and explain to people, is you've pushed the conservatives, like me, back as far as we're going to go. And we're not going to take another step back. And if you're a moderate, you have to understand that. The left isn't going to back off because you have never convinced the left to back off. All right. It's always been the conservatives for decades now, slowly stepping back. Well, once we stop stepping back, what you've got now is the same people pushing. Okay. And the other people saying, my back's on the wall, I can't go back any further. You're pushing an immovable object. What happens in the middle?
They get crushed.
Okay, they're gonna have to make a choice. And this nonsense that they keep coming back with. I mean, take a look. You can go on the internet. You can go on the social media. Take a look at how the left views what was going on in Kenosha. Look at it. You have a kid who is obviously just defending himself, and they're running around calling him a murderer, saying there was absolutely no justification for anything that he did. All right. Now, what does that tell? How are you gonna have commonality with somebody like that? Because they don't believe you have the right to defend yourself.
Well, no, and it gets worse than that, MC. Worse than that. I couldn't believe it. My jaw actually dropped. I know it's 2020 and I'm still shocked. Shame on me. I get it. But a white Hispanic cop shoots and kills black man. That's a headline to an article from CNN. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Right?
Hey, Benoit.
Hispanic and white Hispanic, real quick, Dodge. Hispanic and white Hispanic wasn't a recognized demographic until the shooting of, what's his name? Ferguson, I think?
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin, that dude. Yeah, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't a thing until Trayvon Martin. It was just white, and then there was Hispanic. There was no white Hispanic or.
Well, it's bullshit because this is what they're doing. They're saying either you're on the left or you're not black. Either you're on the left or you're not Hispanic. You're on the left or you're not gay. You're on the left or you're not recognizing the sins of your ancestry, evil white man. It really is political, not racial.
No, it's religious.
It is more of a dogmatic stance than it is a political stance. The progressive left, it's unfair to call them Democrats, really, because they're not. The progressive left is a different kind of animal, and their politics aren't rooted in what normal people, normies, or even us would consider. Indeed rooted in a cult-like dogmatic view of the world, from the way the government should be run, from the way society should be run, from the way people should think and speak. Everything about their worldview is a political dogma.
I agree, Doku, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's ridiculous when you have a group of white Democrat men yelling at a black cop, calling him an Uncle Tom and traitor. Who the fuck are you idiot? You have zero self-awareness right now.
Well, that's because sorry, go ahead, Pinoy.
Again, what I'm saying? What you have to understand is that all right. Progressivism was born out of a church. It's literally a sect of the Protestant church that went rogue and has been hanging around since the fucking 1870s. Legit. This progressivist movement was around in the 1920s and 30s. This is where the temperance movement fucking came out of. This is where the female voting bullshit, I forget the name of them, fucking whatever the fuck they were. This is where they all fucking came from.
The suffrage movement, the
suffragettes. The suffragettes were part of the progressive movement. If you want to look at the original progressives, there's a good guy you can check out. He was FDR's vice president, right? Not Truman, the guy before him, right? He was a progressive. He traveled the world, liked other people's cultures, virulently anti-fucking racist. This is a fucking progressive wing of the fucking Protestant church that broke off. And it is actually the official state religion of America, right? And because if you read like your fucking...
If you read what?
All men are created equal, right? Like who? Legit. Fucking this is a fucking sect of the fucking progressive religion. It is America's official fucking religion.
I don't
Okay.
think that they have an official religion.
I would like some citation there, sources needed. But I do want to say what happened between JFK and now, because hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's because I'm Irish and I was raised Catholic, but I would vote for JFK. Okay,
Why?
I would.
Why?
In that day and age, because
Why?
why? The race to the moon. He was strong against communism.
Why?
Okay, go ahead, MC. Tell me all about how.
What's the difference between JFK then and today? A bullet to the head.
Yeah, I've made some John Wilkes Booth jokes, so I ain't gonna sweat that one.
I mean, like legit though, like
I'm not making a joke here. Okay, you got to understand something. JFK, when he was killed, became America's saint. He became America's royalty. That's the whole reason that everyone takes a look at and still thinks fondly of RFK, a man who broke law after law in an attempt where he was doing all sorts of illegal wiretaps with J. Edgar Hoover. All right, so
Jimmy Hoffa.
All right, so he could prosecute a bunch of freaking mobsters. Right, where he says, okay, well, and this was his justification. Well, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we were illegally spying on them, but we're not using any of that information. Okay, of course, we did find out where they were hiding their money, so that we got them on tax evasion charges. All right, but we weren't. We're none of the tapes are used to prove our case.
I'm actually smiling because I never said I liked Bobby. Fuck him.
Okay.
No, I'm telling you, JFK. All right, look. I'm literally gonna just strip libertarian off of your fucking name. All right.
You've already been done. You're late to the meeting.
Legit. You cannot be a fucking libertarian and be pro growing the fucking state.
The state grew during the time between the end of the Cold War and the rise of the Iron Curtain because of our response to Russia for a majority of it. That is why we had the military-industrial complex build up.
All right. First of all, the military-industrial complex that everyone talks about, all right, is a term that was created by Eisenhower. All right, and the reason for that, all right, wasn't because of the military buildup the way people think it was. All right, it was because we had created an entire new branch that they had to fund, and they did, called the Air Force, and they threw all this money, all right, and all this new technology, and gave them for a long period of time the keys to the kingdom. When it came to budgetary concerns, they overrode everyone else's. The Air Force overrode everyone else's concerns, and then they like everyone does is they get high on their own shit, and they go nuts.
Well, I do have a question. Why did they have to create the Air Force? They could have left the fighter pilots under the jurisdiction of the Navy or the Army, respectively, right?
ICBMs.
That could have fallen under NASA.
No, NASA is not a military wing. It's not part of the military wing. All right.
Okay, so create the Space Force before Trump did. And I don't like the name Space Force because it's gimmicky, but we do need something like that because there are aspects.
Yo, you are the worst libertarian in the history of libertarians.
I'm not a libertarian at this point. I've already said that before on air. No. And okay, yeah, let's all live in our own little tribe. I'm fine with that. and then let the rock hit us. No, we need to know when there's a fucking giant asteroid coming the size of what wiped out the dinosaurs. Do you not agree on this? I mean, seriously. Is being a multi-planet species something stupid? What do you mean stupid?
It's stupid.
Oh, go eat a banana.
No, fucking being a multi-species. Shut the fuck up. We don't even know how to fucking deal with our fucking oceans. Like, what are you talking about? We're gonna go to space. Motherfucker, we can't even go like more than like 1,000 feet below our fucking oceans, and we're gonna go to space.
We already
went out of here.
We already went to space. Get the fuck out of here. You're late to the party.
We're gonna go. No. We're gonna go to space to go on other planets when we can't figure out how to live on a lot of this one. Like, the fuck out of there. Yo, it's the dumbest shit ever. Legit.
No, it will focus the energy of the country and the world into something productive, and maybe we'll stop killing each other for a minute.
No, we need more people to die.
No.
Like, I'm pro killing people. Like, fuck that. Like, do you know how many fucking people, like, we have to feed all the goddamn time? We don't need to? Like, yo, dude, I would love to pay $20,000 for a fucking house again. That'd be amazing.
Okay, Ace, he said multi-species. I said multi-planet species. In other words, we colonize the moon and Mars.
Yo, we're not gonna do that.
We will sooner or later unless we wipe each other out.
No, we won't. Stop. This is not Star Trek. Fucking stop it.
Stop it.
We are never going to be Star Trek.
Are you insane? What else? We got people in a fucking space station, pretty much a tin can in orbit. And I'm the crazy guy here?
Yeah. Like, yo, you really think, like, legit, that just because we have some tin cans in orbit, that we're going to fucking go and colonize deep space?
I hate to break it to you, buddy. That's not deep space.
What? Mars and fucking the moon are fucking farther away than you think.
That's not deep space. That's the interplanetary system. Then
we are not going to fucking be a multi-planetary species. Never going to happen
here. Like, come on, I can't be the one here.
You're fucking ridiculous.
Why are we not going to be a multi-planetary species?
Yo, well, number one, because like fucking we can't deal with this planet, let alone another one. Right. Secondly,
we can't deal with this planet. What are you referring to?
Well, in general, like fucking, we have a hard time surviving like water and fucking flight. So we legit, we cannot. We haven't fully even conquered this planet yet. This planet isn't even explored completely yet. And we're going to go and colonize another fucking planet.
Hey, leave those poor fuckers on Sentinel Island alone, all right?
You know, like, we know less about our rainforest than we do the fucking moon. Like, how about, you know...
No, wait a minute. We're learning more about the rainforest every day. Burn it down. Thank you very much.
We burn it down. Like legit. Like, we know dick about the fucking rainforest.
What do you mean we know nothing about the rainforest? We know a lot about the rainforest. Do we know everything perfectly? No. But then again, that doesn't mean that we don't know anything about the rainforest.
Yeah, we barely know shit about the rainforest. Just like our ocean. We barely know shit about the ocean.
No, we know a lot about the ocean. Do we know every little in and out? No. We know a lot about the ocean, Pete Hoyt.
Wait a minute. They have an in and out down there?
Yeah, where the fuck is the burgers going?
That's all I heard. I heard in and out. I thought restaurant, burgers.
It doesn't matter. Yo, you don't have a mask.
I have a mask.
Fucked up.
Yeah, and by the way, fucking Taco Bell was closed when I went to get some fucking tacos, cocksuckers.
Yeah, because they knew you were coming.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Fucking assholes ain't open at midnight for the stoners no more. Goddamn pandemic fucking everything up.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's not the pandemic that's screwing it up. It's our response to the pandemic. But even then, right?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things in the ocean that would be quite interesting to try and exploit. All right, there are challenges there. All right, and the challenges to exploit those within the ocean are far greater than actually putting a man on the moon or obviously going to Mars. If we were going to go to Mars, the technology it would take for us to go to Mars now. To colonize Mars and create, like Pinoy was saying, a multi-species on a planet, it needs to be a little bit more because you need to be able to survive. You need to be able to terraform the planet, etc. Right? We're a long ways from being able to do that.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere. I mean, there was a moment where JFK said, "We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon." They're like, "Yeah, okay."
Once again, we would not have put a man on the moon if it wasn't for the bullet in the head.
Wait, do you think the moon landing was faked?
No. I'm saying
Why
that the
does
reason
the flag wave?
I'm saying that the reason we went to the moon by the end of the decade was only due to the fact that JFK was martyred.
Do you believe that there was? I mean, this is going off in the conspiracy, but I like talking about the grassy knoll. What's your thoughts on it?
No, I don't believe that there was another shooter in the grassy knoll.
Doku, how about you? You got your tinfoil hat on?
I believe it's very unlikely, but there's enough out there to give me pause for a cause to doubt that it was just one. But I still think it's unlikely because the more people involved in it, that's just more weak links you're adding. Honestly, if you just want one guy to do it so that you can silence him later. That's the way these things have always been done, especially in spycraft.
Well, and getting back to the original topic, so you believe that the left is amping up the racism in the country and putting a spotlight on something that was very minimal 10 years ago and just ramping it up to suit their own ends. You believe this is a conservative versus communist or progressive fight, not a racial thing, right, MC?
So it's racial now, right? Because they convinced, due to the way they've been doing things, they have convinced too many African Americans that their racism is fully justified and that it's not the harmful thing that it is. The federal government was a part of it too. They let the federal government do it.
We got a request from Ace in the chat, MC, if you want to read that and then answer his question for him.
Can you expound on it? If it wasn't for his assassination, we wouldn't have made it to the moon. I think that it is an interesting point that isn't brought forward as much as it could be. Okay. JFK, when he got killed, okay, first of all, JFK was killed in Dallas. All right. Now, why was he in Dallas? He was in Dallas because they had an election coming up. And even though his vice president, all right, was from Texas, LBJ, they were in danger of losing the state in the upcoming election. The polls were showing that he had he was at a massive bleed to that. When he was martyred, though, okay, the nation basically deified him. It became the national cause celeb because he had mentioned the space race, because he had mentioned putting a man on the moon. It became a national goal. They threw funding out the wazoo, all right, to NASA. And the people in NASA broke their backs and burned their fingers to the bone. Why? Because it became a national pride to defend our assassinated president, our deified president. If it wasn't for that will behind it, if JFK, who had made that statement would not even be remembered today. if he hadn't been assassinated. His speech in Berlin, okay, would not be remembered today if he wasn't assassinated. And JFK would not have gone down. He would have been a single-term president, and he would have been removed. Why? Because he had made so many mistakes. He's the one who screwed up the Bay of Pigs. You can argue about the problems with the planning. You can argue about all the other things, but he was the one who screwed up the Bay of Pigs. And it was his screw up with the Bay of Pigs which directly led to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're talking about the lead up to the Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
Okay, so the idea that JFK
wait a minute. What would you have done different, though? You wouldn't have tried to assassinate Fidel? Isn't that pretty much what he did?
With the Bay of Pigs? When he said...
He supported the rebels to try and kill Fidel, right?
No, okay. Well, the program was to overthrow Fidel, all right, began as a CIA plan, all right, under Eisenhower, all right? But he, meaning JFK, gave it the go-ahead. And then he pulled the rug out from under him. Because of what he did, because of his lack of experience, because of his inability to actually, have intestinal fortitude to see it through. Okay, once you start a military operation like that, you have got to see it through. You don't do, well, we're partly there. Let's just pull back. And that's what he did. That invasion, the Bay of Pigs invasion, would have been successful if he would have allowed the second airstrike. He refused to allow the second airstrike. Why? Because, you told me we would only need one, and it failed. That's like saying that, you had a military plan, and it didn't go quite to scale, all right? So therefore, you're going to just pull the whole plan out from under you. And JFK was a military leader. He understood what he was doing. Okay, he sat up there and was worried about himself, not the United States and not the people of Cuba, and definitely not the people that he sent over there to go on that damn island.
Yeah.
Now perhaps it wouldn't have turned out the way that we all would have liked, all right? But he didn't give it a chance to get it to work. Question for MC. Do you think that people like Wernher von Braun and things like Operation Paperclip didn't happen, we would have been able to go to the moon? I don't think that. All right. First of all, Operation Paperclip was more of a get the German scientists before the Russians did, because the Russians were becoming a problem with the Soviets.
Well, yeah, but I mean, von Braun created the V2 rocket. And that's what we use to get to the moon.
He was one of the scientists that worked on the V2. To say that he created it is giving him far more credit than he deserves. Okay, Wernher von Braun was a brilliant man. Don't get me wrong, but he was typical German, and his concentration was he always did have the view of he wanted to go to the moon. He always was looking toward the moon. He became a Nazi more for the fact that it allowed him to continue what he's doing. Right, I'm not saying the guy didn't have his flaws or wasn't even an anti-Semite, because he may well have been, but his priority, all right, was to try and get to the moon first. But he was typical of the Germans, and if it wasn't, in fact, Wernher von Braun, actually, if he would have left up to his own devices, we never, all right, would have been able to go to the moon by the turn of the century in 1969. We would not have been on the moon. Why? Because one of the things that he demanded in typical German fashion, which there's a reason for this, but one of the things that he always demanded was full-up testing. He demanded not just that each component get tested, but that each component get tested within its module, and then each module get tested within the overall components until you had the full system up and running. He was absolutely horrified when he was told, and he had to be ordered, all right, to run the Saturn V engines, okay, and do an all-on test without them testing each and every little component of it first. He was furious because it broke his his code of testing each and every little bit before they tested the entire design.
Do you think he had OCD?
Oh, he was definitely a perfectionist. I don't know about OCD, but he was definitely a perfectionist.
Well, and
I'm not saying that he didn't move the program forward and that it wasn't part of his vision. All right. In typical German fashion, if you take a look, for example, at the engine that we used, all right, the Saturn V engines, those things are colossal. Why? Because the bigger, the better. But in reality, the engines themselves, while they are on a colossal scale, all right, are not as technically advanced as some of the rocket motors from an engineering perspective that the Soviets were using at the same time. But the Soviets had other problems with their engines, okay, and with their engine designs, not the least of which is, and this became a problem for the Soviet Union across the board, is while they had great technology in certain areas, all right, that technology started to fall down when the engineering behind those technologies needed other advances on a broader scale. When you needed a lot of advances throughout the entire industry. This is why the Russians failed to go to the moon. This is why their N-1 rocket, all right, failed, because it was too complicated.
well, and welcome, Ace, and real quick, I haven't shilled at all this stream. Down below, I actually did the YouTuber thing. I got my BitChute down there. Please go and follow me there in case I get kicked off of YouTube. I also got some links for Teespring, and I only made one design so far, and I'm gonna make more. So hopefully the storefront will get better over on Teespring. And then also, if you want a cabbie mug or any of the old merch, I got Scream Labs, the merch store down there. Also, the donate area. Thank you very much. And we're a little sidetracked, but this is actually an interesting conversation because people like von Braun had a wider vision. He had designs for a space station that would actually create artificial gravity. Have you seen the plans for that? It's actually quite interesting.
Well,
No.
not only that, he actually had whole designs and pretty much projections of how to get to Mars as well. And he had the same thing about going to the moon. And this was before he was even really brought into NASA and used in that capacity. And I completely understand what they did with Operation Paperclip of the Americans versus Russians. And you brought up a great point there, especially with right after the war. It was a fucking fight. Like, no, come to our side. We're better. No, come to our side. Like, you can do fucking anything. We'll give you all the socialist fucking bullshit, blah, 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 blah. And, like, they had that nice back and forth, obviously. But with Operation Paperclip, that's why I brought it up of, like, do you think their influence of snatching up all these different officials? Because one of the unfortunate things that a lot of people don't want to talk about with when it comes to war is those scientists and whatnot, they tend to do a lot of fucked up things that's not medically, ethically appropriate, but we learn a lot from that. And same thing with the scientific community. They do a lot of fucked up things ethically, but they learn a lot from that. So knowing that different input, you could gain and go a lot farther in a quicker motion.
Well, the reality is that the Nazi scientists, there were Nazi scientists who were out now, right? full blown Nazis.
Oh yeah.
Right? They were true believers in the Nazi movement. Did we bring them over? All right. Had they been involved in things like slave labor? Yeah, they were. Okay. They were not the ones that we could at least say that they were part of the concentration camps. But I guarantee you, if they'd have known about the concentration camps, their comment would be, well, that's a good start. That's who they were.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if we're talking about Warren von Braun, he had the whole factory and whatnot, and he would hang the 3 slowest Jews every day. So, yeah, he would absolutely agree. That's a great start. So, are they the greatest people? Absolutely not. And like I said, one of the horrors of war is they get to do a lot of fucked up.
I think you're confusing Werner von Braun with Albert Speer.
Yeah, because I thought von Braun actually.
I thought he had a factory as well. If I am confusing it, my bad. I apologize.
They really didn't let his big area was Peenemünde. That's where they were doing those things, but he wasn't in control of the factory. The factories were all under the control of Albert Speer.
Okay, yeah, like I said, if I did confuse you too, I apologize.
That's saying that Albert Speer wasn't. Albert Speer, though, he didn't get hung. All right. For all the other things, he didn't get hung. That's kind of a surprise.
Well, no, and I think von Braun was one of the members of the party who knew where the wind was blowing and wasn't necessarily a diehard. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, he was somebody that would do whatever he had to forward his vision of rocketry, because that was always his baby, right? From the earliest days. Anything that would forward that. If I honestly believe that if the Russians would have captured him, he would have been, the one in charge of the entire. Well, he probably would have been shot simply because the Russians, even though they captured a lot of German scientists, they never used them to the degree that the United States did. They didn't let them be like in charge of anything, really.
Well, no, and since we kind of switched to space, and Doku, you don't have to be silent unless you fell asleep. Then stay on mute. I don't want to hear you snore. But no, have you heard the story about the guys with the radio, right? The long range radio, and they caught the cosmonaut woman up in space. And she was yelling at Burns or whatever.
Yes.
Do you think the Russians lied about a lot of failed launches, I guess, is the way to put it? I mean, they launched people and animals knowing they had no way to get back down, right?
Yeah. Do I think that they lied? We know that they did. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I'm sorry to cut you off. Do I think that they lied? Absolutely, because it was a rat race then. It was who's going to be the first to actually do all this stuff. And not only that, you got to look at it in context now to present time, that there are so many different space missions that goes on that we don't actually know about, where people are up there doing shit people might not come back from. I'm like, shit. Just within the past 5 years, they just recently figured out a way to fucking actually make it where they don't lose as much bone density, because it starts to affect your fucking pretty much your spine and all your bones as soon as you get into space, like within 24 to 48 hours of like, oh, I don't have to work against gravity, so I can start to turn to jelly. Like, so we're still learning so much about it, and all the different, like, what you see, absolutely, it's fucking great, all the different experiments they're doing, but you know that there's so much more behind the scenes. And
there are. For example, who's the first man? Who's the first man in space to orbit?
The first man in space?
To orbit, yeah.
Oh, orbit? Oh, I was gonna say the one that fucking burned up coming back down. Fucking he was Russian, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, Yuri Andropov is the one that they all point to, the Soviet.
Yeah,
the first man who came back and everything. Well, there's several things that the Russians were lying about with that. Number one, he wasn't the first. Their first attempt, all right, to put a man in there, went badly wrong when it was coming back, and the guy actually landed in China. The cosmonaut actually landed in China, and he was badly injured. All right. Now, eventually, China repatriated him and everything. The Russians knew about it, but they never announced that they had done it. The second thing was, and that people didn't realize, was that the Russians, even with Yuri Andropov, what they did was, yeah, they launched. He was in the capsule when it launched, but when it came down, as it was coming down, partway through, once it got through the heating phase, he would blow the hatch and jumped out and then parachuted down. Right? He did not land in that craft. That craft did not land because they didn't have the ability to land that craft successfully. It came into the ground and went wham! And if there had been a person in it, they would have died.
Well, isn't that why NASA landed in the ocean all the time, pretty much,
Well,
right?
That is one of the concerns that NASA had with landing in the ocean. Now, the reality is the United States had learned certain things about how to deploy parachutes quickly, right, in high speed, all right, that the Russians didn't learn until they saw the American technique, and it has to do with there's a ring, all right, holding the shrouds in when it's going really fast, but as it slows down, as those parachutes are acting as streamers, it slows the craft down. It slowly opens, all right, and that ring goes down, right. But it sounds like a simple solution and a simple technology. But unless you do something like that, if you try to open up that chute without that ring initially, it would rip the chute open. It would just rip it apart. And so, and of course, everything would crash because it was traveling at too great a speed. This allowed it to slow down to a point where the parachutes would actually deploy successfully. But this is all part of that learning phase that Ace is talking about. There's a lot of things that we learned, and we still haven't. There's another dirty little secret about space travel that we haven't gotten over yet. All right, and that is, we have learned, all right, that if you put somebody in space for more than like a week or two, their eyes are damaged permanently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we learned that from one twin was an astronaut and the other wasn't, and they were identical completely, and they tested the both of them. The one that went to space was slightly shorter and had a little bit lesser bone density and slight sight loss, right?
Now, see, the bone density you could actually gain back. It's going to take, like I was saying, they've just recently found better ways of doing this. But for the astronauts of 10, 7, 8 years ago, it would take them actually a year to get to the same level before they actually lifted off Earth. But the differences with the eyes, that is actual permanent damage. And with what basically happens is it doesn't have the shield. Once you leave the Earth's atmosphere, you're not in that same shield. So you're getting little bits of fucking particles hitting your eyes all the time. And you don't have the same nice little fucking bouncy mirror, pretty much, that the Earth has to reflect all of that away from you. And there's astronauts who have said it's really hard to sleep, like on the ISS, because you see these little bursts of light in your eyes all the time. And it's all the particles that are hitting you because you don't have that shield.
Yeah, there's a lot that we have yet to learn, and people don't. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about a lot of these things. For example, the one guy, Russian that was in space for over a year. Right? I can't think of the guy's name. He came back and he lived, all right, but he literally couldn't walk out of the capsule. They literally had to carry him. He had to relearn, all right, and rebuild his muscle strength to be able to walk in gravity again.
Well, and that's going to be a problem later on with colonization of places like Mars, where there is a gravity difference. If you're going to be a Martian, you're going to be a Martian, or it's going to be extremely uncomfortable to come to Earth. Maybe impossible.
Well, okay, so if you're planning on colonizing something like Mars, right? I wouldn't foresee something like a return trip to Earth in your distant future. I'm talking generations beyond future having that return trip. And then you deal with that issue. Because if you're trying to colonize something like a new planet, you want to get acclimated to that surrounding. You want to get acclimated to its gravity, and work on terraforming it and making it to Earth-like, but within reason.
Well, yeah, and this is a question for all of you. I'll start with Doku because he's been muted forever, and he unmuted finally. My personal belief is we would be smart to set up a base on the moon and construct colony ships. And as we're doing that, drop supplies and send teams to Mars to, I don't know, create a greenhouse effect and start to get an atmosphere that is more cohesive to life on the planet, because initially you're going to be colonizing below ground because of the radiation alone that's coming from space, right?
Not exactly. I'm sorry, go ahead, Duke.
Oh yeah, no, I was just so what you're talking about is setting up a waypoint, which yeah, that's going to be a necessity at some point in time if you plan on having any permanent presence within the interplanetary systems anyways. So yeah, that's a good place to start, especially if you're talking about building larger spacecraft that are, not going to be one-offs, but doing, back and forth transit trips. It's a lot easier to construct and build that in a lower gravity or no gravity environment, like using essentially a large scaffold or jig system. It's a little more difficult to put something like that around the moon, just because you're not going to get the same shielding that the moon provides to the Earth from small meteorites, rocks, and anything that might throw it off base. You're going to have to keep it in some type of orbit, especially if you plan on doing construction. You'd probably be better off doing the construction around the Earth. But the other problem that you're going to run into is all those materials, unless you plan on mining the moon, you're still going to have to get all that stuff off of the Earth's surface and into orbit somehow and transport it. So that's going to be your major logistical problem right there.
May I approach that?
Real quick, because I'll just tell, because I only have one other point. The problem you're going to run into with Mars and creating essentially a greenhouse gas or a terraforming effect is the fact that the Martian core is cold. It's not creating the same electromagnetic field that the Earth has. So, I mean, you're going to have to talk about some serious engineering and some very hard to acquire precious rare earth metals to just create the same type of shielding so that you can live on the Martian surface long enough to get anything viable going in the first place. And you're talking not about a multi-generational endeavor, but you're talking about something that's going to take our grandkids, worth of time and effort dedicated without stopping to really see any true fruition. Either that or you see a massive leap in technology, like all it's going to take is one fucking Einstein to get born.
Well, okay, your second point, that may not be true. NASA has some photos and stuff that may just be volcanic activity on Mars. We don't know for sure, but it may be.
Yeah, if there is, it's still not enough to produce a significant electromagnetic field that's going to shield you from the radiation. Although you do have the bright side of you're further away from the sun than you are from Earth, so small victories.
And second, that's where our private corporations like SpaceX come in. Go and mine the asteroid belt. Those ships we're creating, use those for supplies at first and keep building. Yeah. We don't need to just jump to Mars, right?
Yeah, but man, let's be honest. When it comes to SpaceX, fucking Elon Musk just said, yeah, you know what? To terraform Mars, let's just nuke it.
That's technically
not the worst idea.
I mean, technically, you could achieve a terraforming effect by nuking the Martian surface. You just run into this problem of irradiating the planet.
I know.
No. You drill What you want to do is, if that core is still slightly active, you want to jump start it, right?
I don't think that's the best way to go about jump-starting an iron core inside a large celestial body. Just throwing that out there.
Let's give it a shot.
I mean, if you want to achieve MC's dreams of space rocks for every living, breathing person on the planet, then that's one way to go about it.
I don't believe one nuke would blow up an entire planet.
Depends on if the core is active or not. You never know.
Wasn't there a fucking movie about this where like they went into the core of Earth and they were trying to trap nukes to fucking get it going again?
Yeah, but I mean that was bullshit.
Well, yeah, I know.
Did it work though?
In
There's
a
actually
movie, it worked, yeah, but they used multiple nukes in a chain reaction.
There's actually a study that was done, and by study I mean it's purely mathematical. But someone decided to, I don't know why they did this, but they tried to figure out what effect the Tsar Bomba would have if it was detonated at the, what was that, the borehole that the Russians drilled, the super deep Earth borehole?
They were thinking about dropping it in the Marianas Trench.
Oh, was that the study? Because I know there was another one about a nuke going off at the deep Earth borehole, and that was bad enough. The Marianas Trench, I think that's probably a planet killer. If it's the Tsar Bomba.
I honestly don't think it has as much of an effect as people think. The only question would be whether or not the vibration would loosen the Pacific plate. And if it loosens the Pacific plate, that could cause some widespread damage if it happens.
Wait. If it does that, do we lose California? And so, can we get this done?
I mean, bare minimum.
In theory, yeah.
Bare minimum, you're going to give California a taste of what Japan has every time there's a 4.0 plus magnitude earthquake off in the Dragon Sea.
Well, no, okay. You guys don't like the idea. Well, actually, MC, what's your stance on colonizing Mars and using the moon as a waypoint to build? And I like the mining asteroid belt idea myself. And before you answer that, my second question is, if Mars is out of the question, I got a better one for you, but it's a moon, Titan.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go.
Oh, okay. First of all, Titan is too far away. All right. We're gonna throw that one right out. Right? Period. Titan's too far away. Secondly, all right, as far as colonizing Mars, all right, yes, you would have to restart its core. Right. There are other methods that you could possibly use to reheat the core, but you're going to have to heat the core with something aside from a nuke per se. What you would have to create, all right, if you were really serious about this, is you would have to create a dome and do Chernobyl, all right, on a mass scale, and let it melt all the way down to the core. And that's not an easy methodology to do. Now, granted, you could instead of doing it like that, you could dig a hell of a lot of ways into Mars before you started it, all right, and did something so it doesn't have to go as deep. But you're going to have to get significantly deeper into the Martian soil, all right, than we've ever done on Earth. All right, so is it theoretically possible to do something like that? The problem with all this is that it's theory. All right. The reason we have a magnetic core, we theorize, is because Earth, all right, has, or the magnetic field rather, is because Earth, we theorize that there's a molten core, all right, inside of liquid metal. We don't know exactly what it is. All right. We assume, all right, that it's iron. We're not sure, right? But we know it can't be completely iron because iron would have solidified, at least on its own, a long time ago. So what is heating that core? They assume that there's some kind of nuclear reaction going on, kind of like a runaway Chernobyl, all right, where you basically got a the China syndrome effect going that works on the Earth's core that keeps going. Eventually, that nuclear fuel, however, will begin to run out, and the Earth's core will cool, and the magnetic field around the Earth will stop protecting it. But you need that magnetic field going long before you do anything else on Mars, all right, if you're actually going to have a sustainable atmosphere. Because otherwise, the solar winds, the Earth is 93 million miles away from the sun. Okay? Mars is only 126 million miles away from the sun. Now, what does that mean? That means the amount of solar wind that's hitting Mars, all right, is still a third of what it hits the Earth, all right? Between a half to a third what it hits the Earth. That's still a significant amount to rip away the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're going to need to have a shield. You're going to have a magnetic shield to protect it. Okay, once you get the magnetic shield in place, then you can worry about, thermal pressure and adding global warming gases and things like that to try and ramp up the pressure.
Oh, and I neglected to mention this, and I don't understand or I don't fully know to great detail the theory behind this, but I've only read it in passing, and it's kind of a cheap shortcut. If you wanted, when I say cheap shortcut, I'm being very, very generous by saying that. If you really wanted to set up a semi-permanent colony on Mars until you got more permanent residency established, the majority of everything could be done underground. You'd still have to find a way to create some sort of magnetic shielding to help you from the radiation that people on the ISS suffer from. But a lot of the Martian soil could provide you with enough shielding that it's feasibly possible. The other benefit is through the burning of energy and activity, you will slowly, and when I say slowly, big emphasis on slowly, start to reintroduce heat to the Mars soil. So it might make jump starting the core at some far off point in the future a little bit easier. But again, we're not talking about generations. We're talking over the course of thousands of years.
Well, and here's the problem. Here's the problem. You can't create a permanent settlement and start colonizing and bringing people in and then jumpstart the core. You ever heard of plate tectonics? That's a thing. You know what I mean?
I'm not talking about jumpstarting the core with that type of scenario. That would just happen slowly over time, naturally. That's why I'd say if you went that route, you'd have to do it with the understanding that this will be thousands of years.
Well, and that's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, MC.
All right. When you start talking plate tectonics, though, we don't know enough about plate tectonics to know why plate tectonics exists the way it does. All right. There's a lot of theories, and it includes the fact that we have a gravitational rotation due to the moon. All right, that creates part of that. That creates the buckles in the crust and so forth. So we still would have to worry about something like that. And at this point in time, no, we don't know if Mars has continental plates because we don't see shift. Go ahead.
I would add a caveat to that, MC, though, and sorry, the kids are getting ready to go to bed. The caveat would be they do believe that Mars was pretty much the twin to Earth generations ago, which is why they keep hunting for fossils on Mars, right? They keep hunting for life on Mars for a reason. So theoretically, it has ice caps, right? I would say yes, it has continental shelves.
One of the things that kind of piqued my interest when I freaking clicked on the stream and I brought this up in the chat is, I think Madaj, you said something about being a multi-planet species. Well, is that possible? Absolutely. And Pinoid was raging against it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Pinoid. He's great people, but sometimes he's too much of a fucking Appalachian fucking chimp swinging around, fucking eating fish out the fucking lake, just fucking killing shit, doing his own fucking thing. I don't think that he has the future sight of down the generations that this is possible. Like this is a talk that's been going on, yes, probably for the past 40 years in the scientific community, but now it's reached out to the public community, and we're going, all right, yeah, we're really fucking up this planet, but we also need to figure out different ways of keeping the species alive, but it's not going to happen now. How do we make this possible? So it's almost like that fucking internet global think tank of like, here's all these different ideas. Let's make this possible so our species does survive and does do something great, but it's honestly not going to happen in the next 50 years, 100 years, or anything like that. It's going to take multi-generations to get there.
Well, I would say, real quick, I would say let's skip Mars completely, because that's a massive project and a massive undertaking. You can do a little bit here and a little bit there.
No,
but
we can't skip Mars, and this is why. That's in Trump's plan.
Yeah, but Dodge, let me finish my point here. As far as colonizing Mars to the extent that you're talking about, I would say no, skip that completely. Using it as a staging ground, yeah, that is actually doable. We could potentially do that. But the majority of our effort, going off of what you proposed, mining the asteroid belt, start with that first, because not only are you getting natural resources that you're going to need, because let's be honest, the Earth, the resources we're talking about coming from the Earth, those are finite resources. If something goes wrong while that's in deep space, the recovery effort's going to cost more resources that we simply don't have. So you're already running a big risk there. Start mining the asteroid belt first, and whenever an asteroid belt has been mined, reinforce those tunnels and start setting up your temporary colonies, quote unquote, there. Like the same way that we have the ISS, except do it inside an asteroid. You're already getting the free shielding from the actual planetary pseudoplanetary body itself, but you also have the free borehole that you've already dug. You might as well utilize it to some other fashion. Then now you have
just throw the damn asteroid into Mars, and there you got your borehole.
Or that.
Well, no,
I guess that's one way.
I would argue that Mars is completely within our bounds currently. I believe that we can land people on Mars, and we could have since the 80s at least. Bring them, land them, bring them back, and that's it. We could have did that already, and we should have. Now, you want a way station and use Mars as that? Go underground.
I really don't think you understand the challenges of landing a person on Mars and bringing them back.
And the key thing is bringing them back.
Yeah.
Going there is one thing. Coming back is a completely different astronomical aspect.
You do realize that they have calculated the exact projection on how to do this in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, and they make an estimate that you get to stay on the planet, all right, and survive without any problems whatsoever for a few months before you begin to return. You do understand
and okay, you know what? I get where you're coming from. I understand. It is completely beyond my realm of knowledge to actually do this. But you're talking about the same species that decided we're going to go to Antarctica and we're going to climb this giant fucking glacier and we're going to fucking die here. Why? Because we want to be the first person to make it to the South Pole.
We're those people.
Why have we lost that spirit? Why?
We haven't. It's just that he's pointing out, Ace is pointing out correctly. It's one thing to go there. We can. I agree with you that we could get to Mars and we could land people on Mars and they would be alive when they landed. Right? 6 months later, all right, to begin the trip back, and we got to remember, going to Mars is going to take you at least 6 months. Okay? And that's if we use something that no one's talked about in this entire stream, and that's nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That will get you there.
They have another way. It's basically using what? It's like a solar sail, and it slowly pushes you, but the velocity.
That method that they've talked about, they estimate is you're going to be traveling for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, that's out. That's out then. Yeah, we're not going with that. What about the sling? Are you talking 6 months with the slingshot method?
Oh yeah,
referring to?
Because you've got to leave at a specific point. You got to then fling yourself out there, and you basically throw yourself in the way of Mars as coming into its orbit, so it captures you. That's what it takes. Okay, in order to get there, to come back, you have to do something very similar. But once again, where the Earth is, you're going to have to do it kind of in reverse, where the Earth is going to capture you, right? But the thing is once the Earth goes past that point where you land, you're going to have to wait 6 months before the Earth is back in the position for you to get sent back.
Okay. What about the first mission? You go out, you use the slingshot method, you drop satellites around, as way stations to magnify your signal and cut that down. You go and you orbit for 6 months, like you're in the International Space Station, and you come back. Next time, you have better communication. There's already a satellite in orbit on the moon or on Mars, and then you drop supplies. And then
the ISS.
Understand?
How many times in the ISS have we sent up supplies, emergency supplies, all right, in order to fix things?
Well, yeah, and on Mars we fucking dropped our first rover, and it smacked into the ground because they confused metric with standard. I get it. Mistakes happen.
All right. But the thing is mistakes can happen. That's not the point. The point is the ISS orbits Earth. We can get supplies up to it fairly quickly if we need to. All right. It isn't going to be tomorrow, but within a few weeks we can send up emergency supplies. You're not going to have that option if you're orbiting Mars, and if you're doing it for 6 months. Everything, like I said, everything has to work perfectly in order just to do that. Right? Could we do something similar to that? It would be easier to do that than to actually land and take off again, because the landing and take off is a whole new dynamic. All right. There's a reason why we were able to do it on the moon, but if you ever took a look at how we did it on the moon, it is, to be honest, it amazes me that we even said, yeah, we'll try this, because we were using something that said, okay, this should work. The engine should start. We're not sure because we've never really done this, but we know the chemical reactions there. We'll just trust the chemical reaction to work 100% perfectly.
Oh, well, no, and Apollo 13 is a perfect example. I mean, that scene in the movie actually happened, I believe, where they dump out the box of stuff. He's like, you need to use this to fit a circle peg into a square hole, or the other way around, what have you. That's all you get. Go. Oh, by the way, we have a deadline. They're gonna die up there.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, that worked on the way to the moon, all right. But they weren't there for 6 months, were they?
I mean,
I get what Mitch is saying about radio signals only travel so fast, but you can boost a radio signal, which is why I would drop satellites along the way. And then we could have a surveillance satellite around Mars that's just sitting there. And then who knows what we discover, right?
So with what you proposed before, you're like, oh, that they've actually done the measurements and like they know how to get there, they know how to get back, blah 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 blah. They could spend, let's say 4 to 6 months. I don't remember exactly accurately what you said of how much time they could spend there. Let's just, for shits and giggles, say, Matt, all right, you're going to Itch Obo. You're going to this mountaintop in the middle of the Mongolian fucking desert. You have the perfect fucking system to get there. You have the perfect system to get back. You need to survive the next 6 months. We have enough supplies for you. And hopefully everything goes well. You don't think that there's going to be any error that is going to incur there between...
I never said that. What I said is what happened to us having balls and doing it anyway. That's how they got to Antarctica. That's the people that explored and tried to find the Northwest Passage. That's the people who went to Oregon. I mean, when did we lose our testicular fortitude? I'm sick of it. I want to reach for something.
Well, then you have to understand that back then, okay, a lot of these people were Englishmen, and they were eating English food. They were looking for something to live for. We got good food in America. It's not a problem.
I think that was the perfect fucking rebuttal.
Yeah, I was trying to be all fucking awesome, and then you're like, yeah, but they were British. Like, fuck.
Well, MC actually strangely has a very valid point. Why did the Opium Wars start, and what was fueling the Silk Road? There's this wonderful thing called tea, salt, and pepper. Why do you think the Brits like curry so much?
Because it's the only thing that doesn't taste good.
Even IPAs. You want to know IPAs even existed? Is so they overhop the beer so that when they're traveling back and forth from India to England, the beer didn't go bad. Now all of a sudden it's like some gastro brewery, like fucking great thing in the world. But I'll be blunt, I think IPAs taste better than half the piss water that they, as they call it over here. Like, but you don't grow hops in England.
No, Mitch, I did think of that. That would be an issue. I'm thinking thrusters to keep it locked in place. And as the next run to Mars goes, they drop a new satellite and you turn the thrusters off the old one. Shut it down.
How about you just use nuclear power and deal with the fact that you're going to need to use nuclear power?
I mean, if Mad's sitting there talking about this whole dropping a satellite here, dropping a satellite there, blah, 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 why don't you just build the next ISS to orbit Mars? Wouldn't that make more sense for a waypoint?
Yeah, at first, absolutely. That'd be a great depot for supplies and everything, and you could target your drop zone a lot easier than trying to steer it from Earth. Of course. Yeah. I don't know what Trump's actual proposition is. I think he just wants to get to Mars and back, right? I think. And George Bush said we were going to go back to the moon, and we never did. I'm hoping that President Trump has a short-term plan, because if you make a 5-year plan, well, you're only in office for 4, so the next guy gets to cancel it and use the money that you appropriated.
You're assuming that Congress is going to give him any money to run this program to begin with.
What's NASA doing anymore, really? That's the International Space Station, not the United States Space Station.
What's NASA doing? Well, they're doing projects to deal with cultural appropriation of the Middle East. Haven't you been reading what they've been doing?
Oh, fuck me running. You're kidding, right? No, like, okay, maybe transgender Martians. All right, at least do something that has to do with space.
Yeah, NASA has long screwed up a lot of shit. It really has. Unfortunately, guys, it's getting late, and unfortunately, I got to get up early tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to leave you guys.
Okay,
right,
yeah, good night. Can we kill NASA and reappropriate all that into the Space Force?
I guess technically you could.
That would make it a military, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody likes to bring up the whole we're not supposed to militarize space. Well, guess what, guys? The fact that we have military surveillance satellites in geosynchronous orbit kind of already negates that argument. So, yeah, you could.
Yeah, well, and Putin backed out of that treaty, so that treaty is no longer valid. Thank you very much.
But you know that argument would come up, and I'm not saying it's a good or valid argument, but you know it will come up.
We covered a lot of topics tonight. I really do not. I do believe that the left or the progressive movement, I should actually call it out for what it is using race as the divider here. I think it's more of a tool than the actual root of the problem. But that doesn't negate the fact that race relations in this country are at an all-time low. And you have militias forming up on both sides. And the shot heard around the world, in my opinion, has already been fired. And you saw militias move into Portland to do the job that the governor refuses to do. You see unrest in Oakland. They're walking down the street screaming, "Death to America," like they're Al Qaeda.
Oh, there's a reason. There's a reason, Dodge. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I cut you off, dude. My bad.
These people are no longer sane. These people are the enemy. Now, I would like to keep the battle in the battle of ideas. Everybody gets to speak their ideals, and let the good ones rise and the bad ones sink. But when you have outside radicals, the media, the Al Sharptons, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa, the Klan, the Aryan fucking Nation, the David Dukes of the world. When you have all of these people pretty much saying the same thing but from different sides, then you know it's getting really bad. When the silent majority has to drive into Portland 300 or 400 pickup trucks deep to do the job of the Portland police, you have a problem. When "Death to America" is being screamed, you have a problem. When you're not allowed in church, but you're allowed to go to the grocery store as long as it's a big chain, you have a problem. This isn't Trump's America. This is CNN's America. This is ridiculous. And some of us, well, we're done. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to make the point that I made earlier in the stream. I don't like using the term Democrats versus Republicans anymore. I do my best to shy away from it. Because when we're talking about the left at this current junction in history, we're specifically referring to the progressive left. The same guys, gals, Zims, Zers, and whatever they want to call themselves, that spray paint liberals get the bullet too. They're not fans of liberals. They're not fans of the blue collar union Democrats. They're not fans of the business Democrats, which I feel the need to remind everyone is what Trump was the majority of his life. And we're talking about the fringe of the progressive left, but that's what the establishment left is catering to at this point in time. They don't care about your coal miner, blue collar union Democrat. They strangely still care about the teachers union, but that's because the majority of that has been infiltrated by these ivory tower Marxist progressive think tank type individuals. So that's the only reason they're still getting catered to. But the energy sector, what about the auto workers? They are historically Democrat. These are not your typical Democrat voters at this point in time. At least not the base that's out there rioting and what the mainstream media is pandering towards. They're pandering towards an extremist ideology. But in their mind, everyone who isn't a far left progressive extremist who thinks there's 53 genders and socialism is a good thing, they think we're the extremists. They claim we're the racist, and they think they're right in their crusade against all that is normal, because that's what they honestly believe. It's what they've been led to believe. They are the useful idiots, and they're not Democrats at this point in time. I won't call them Democrats. That's simply just a shield that they hide behind because it sounds better than calling yourself a Marxist or a revolutionary radical. And what do you think they say? Oh, well, we're the Justice Democrats. Well, the reason they say Justice Democrats is because what they mean is they're the social justice Democrats. But that's a bit of a buzzword. It has kind of a negative connotation towards it. Or they say, well, we're democratic socialist. Well, you can leave out the democratic part. You're socialist. That's what your ideology entails. That's what is being pandered to. That's why when people say the Overton window is shifted, it's not the right that became more extreme. The right is conservative by name to conserve values. Change is not exactly something the right does easily or willingly. The left, on the other hand, they want to progress. They want change. I mean, hell, they use it as a campaign slogan. Yeah, change. Like, who else used that slogan? Fidel Castro. The entire idea of change, for better or worse, is built upon dismantling of the system, either willingly or dismantling of the system through forcible violence. Either way, it does inject a certain amount of chaos and entropy into society as a whole. And what we're seeing right now is radical change. So it's safe to say that Trump's kind of right on this one, and I wish he wasn't. The left has become the party of radical ideals. No idea of sovereignty, no idea of citizenship, no idea of you can make your way and you can achieve the American dream as long as you have a good education and a strong work ethic. That's not what they want. They're completely railing against that idea. They want something that's far more along the lines of everybody is equal, everybody gets the same, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you look like, no matter how smart you are, how dumb you are. And they're essentially wanting to put in place both a political and economic structure of appeal to the least common denominator. That's their idea of equality.
Yeah, their idea of justice is free their friends, shoot their enemies.
Well,
that's always the communist idea of justice. No,
actually, Dodge, I saw someone
equal justice before the law.
Well, and Dodge, I saw somebody bring this up, and I want to pose this question to both you and Ace. I forgot who it was. I think it was on Twitter. Might have been an article, but I'm pretty sure it was a Twitter post. Is it justice that y'all are fighting for, or is it revenge? Because it sounds a lot to me like you guys are fighting for revenge, not justice.
I don't know what they want revenge over, honestly. But, and okay, bring up slavery. Go ahead for the millionth time, like you're the only people to ever be enslaved. Like all of you were descended from slave owners. Like you were, your people were owned. No, not all of you. And they forget the free people of color that owned slaves themselves. They forget who brought them over, who sold them initially. History means nothing unless it supports their cause. And when it doesn't, change the facts.
Well, it's either that or shift the goalpost. I mean, that's almost become a part of their dogma as well. It's like, oh, well, yeah, but this only happened once, but look at all this. Like, no, 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 no. You can talk about Charlottesville all you want. And most people, most rational people would condemn that. But you won't condemn the extremism on your own side. It's only bad when the ideological opponents do it. But it's somehow justified when we do it because we're marginalized, we're victims, and therefore that gives us the right to and act in the same way that we claim the extreme far right acts. It's okay if we act like Nazis, but it's not okay when they act like Nazis. Like, again, that sounds like what you guys are seeking, if not violent revolution, is revenge. And this would be revenge in the ideological sense and also the physical sense. I would say it's revenge for being blasphemous towards their political dogma. They're on a crusade. I'll just call it what it is. They're on an ideological crusade against America.
Well, and the really sad part, I think, is okay, let's say we let them win. We all just stay silent and we shut up and go with the flow. We like our TVs and I enjoy my Galaxy phone. My wife loves her iPhone. We just don't care. We let them win. Then they get what they want and nobody ends up working. There's no GDP. The country ends up looking like Venezuela in about 15 to 20 years. I mean, it's America. It would take a while, right? We have a lot of money to burn through. But then they're going to want another revolution to fix what they broke. And they're going to try and fix it with even worse policies. Why do I know that? Because I'm a prophet. No, not really. Because you can look at it if you read a history book. I mean, come on, right?
If they were to win and they were to implement the systems that they want to implement in their purest form, it actually wouldn't take that long for America to collapse. Because you got to remember, yeah, we can produce a lot, and we have quote money to burn through. But here's what's going to happen: you'll end up with a pseudo aristocratic oligarchical society that's still, plenty well to do. But on the grassroots level, our production capacity is going to fall through the fucking floor, and eventually, inevitably, as GDP starts to slip, someone else on the global stage, because we have to acknowledge the fact that we do live in a society where global trade is a thing. We live in a pseudo globalist society. That the value of the United States dollar is going to tank by comparison to, say, the Canadian dollar, the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan. Someone else is going to come in to pick up the slack, and most likely it'll be China. The United States dollar will cease to be the reserve currency as soon as we lose that good faith, and our currency collapses, and the dollar bubble goes kapoop. And guess what, dude? It'll take a year, maybe two, for our society to completely come to a grinding halt. As far as economically speaking goes.
Well, and the problem, I omitted something in my I'm getting some feedback, I think. Nope. All right, it's gone.
No, that was Ace.
Okay. That wouldn't happen, that scenario, without a lot of blood in the streets. Because nobody is going to just let them win. I mean, look at what's going on in Portland, finally. And
Dodge.
I fully support the Trump caravan that went in there.
Oh, Dodge, real quick. I'm speaking hypothetically. If they did win and the programs they're pushing for came to fruition, it would break us economically, and the collapse would only take a few years after that.
Mitch says if they were to win, they'd be the first ones lined up and shot. No, Mitch, he would be. Anybody that owns an actual physical copy of the Constitution would be shot first, which I do own a physical copy. I'm guessing you probably have one on your bookshelf.
I've got one floating around somewhere.
I went ahead and didn't get the pamphlet, cheap ass one. I got the one with the Declaration in it, the Constitution, and the Articles of Confederation. So, but then again, man, I went to college for history. Of course, I got the fucking whole thing. I also own the Federalist Papers, for God's sake. How many people have that?
And I know I have a book both on constitutional theory and then just the actual Constitution itself. I think I have the Federalist Papers, and I also think I have a reprint of the first Farmer's Almanac that was ever printed somewhere.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to be wrapping up shortly, but I've been having this idea. There's a couple of books that I want to dissect on the channel. One will piss a lot of people off. The South Was Right. I want to review that book chapter by chapter. Another one won't piss as many people off, but I think it would be a good dive into the enemy. And we're not going to do it chapter by chapter. We're going to do it pillar by pillar. Doku, Rules for Radicals. Me and you talked about this. And I agree with the way you wanted to do it. Where we talk about, one pillar of it than the next instead of chapter by chapter. Because it is kind of mixed together throughout.
Yeah, it's better that you structure it by pillars, because those are, well, for lack of a better word, those are the pillars that the ideology is built upon.
Yeah, and I do have a copy of Rules for Radicals. So after I read a different book, because I have an interview coming up next week about a new book released, hopefully I will end up getting the link for the where they're selling it and all that. But we'll be doing that next week. I need to read that book. But then I'm going to dive back into Rules for Radicals, which I got the copy I have from the late, great Cabby. One of the books he sent me. So thank you, Cabby. And we're going to continue to explore the idea of what is dividing this country, really, because it's not Donald Trump and it wasn't Obama. This has been building for a long time, and we're at a peak, and hopefully we hit a valley and the tensions start to drop. Excuse me, sorry. As the COVID restrictions lighten up. November for Oregon, the day after my birthday. Election day. Awesome. I hate that bitch. But anyway, enough about the governor of Oregon. I'm going to wrap it up.
Well, Dodge, before you wrap up, I think Ace had a rant he wanted to go on.
I'm good. I'll just let him finish it out.
Oh, no. Your mic went hot, and I heard a car or something, and you were quiet. So,
no, I went to go grab another beer, but I'm good. I'll just let you finish it out. Let your stream end on a high note.
All right. Good night. Good luck. And
don't go to Portland, Oregon.
Vote Trump 2020, guys. That's right. I said it. And that was great, by the way, Pinoid. trying to revoke my libertarian card that I ripped up a month ago. I'm out of here. Peace.